source of great pride and joy that Scholars Bangladesh took the initiative to invite all the NRBs to hold such a prestigious and significant event. And this is probably the last session for today's all concurrent session. May I now request that in this particular session there are quite a few presenters, and you will see that there are a wide variety of topics are coming. So please feel free to share your ideas and thoughts, and if you have any question specifically for any presenter, you may ask questions anytime. Let me again check with all the presenters whether they are there. Dr. Moinuddin Afza, Professor of Management, is he there? Okay. Yeah, Dr. Moinuddin Afza is not there. Anyway, Dr. Nausheen Hassan. Okay, please come on in. Please. Yes, Nausheen Hassan, radiologist, St. Joseph Mary Hospital, Pontiac, Michigan, USA. She's going to talk about tele-radiology. Then I have to call one of the distinguished professor, Professor Mir Masoom Ali. Sir, could you please come on in? Professor Masoom Ali is a distinguished professor of statistics at the Ball State University, Indiana. Actually, he has retired now. He has been serving more than, I believe, 40 years, 50 years he was in the USA. He's going to share his, thoughts, ideas about the higher education opportunities and how he actually helped Bangladeshi students throughout all these, years. Then I have also a distinguished speaker, Dr. Fukhruddin Ahmed. He's also with us, very distinguished speaker. He's going to talk about how to improve Bangladeshi maize and promotes its interest abroad. May I now request Dr. Kamrullah Hassan. Dr. Kamrullah Hassan from USA, is he there? Dr. Kamrullah Hassan is not there. Then Professor Enamul Haq, distinguished professor. Please have a seat, please. And Miss Tasfina Sheikh, MD, Palm Beach Garden Hospital, Columbia. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Dr. Tasfina Sheikh. It is not written there. I think you have a specific paper to present there. Yeah. All right. She has a specific, paper to talk about because she's going to present actually a paper. Anyway, so we are not going to actually spend any more time for just giving the introduction. If you have a cell phone, please just turn it off or put it on the silent mode. We're going to begin our session, and let me also give you some information about the time constraint. We have actually 15 minutes for all these speakers. Okay, so please make sure that you can go up to 15 to 20 minutes, and then the question and answer session in this particular session, I don't know, I'm not sure, because they put it actually at the end of the whole session. So if you have any specific question, you can keep your question with you for any, directing to any speakers. Feel free to ask at the end of the presentation. All right. So as I see that our first presenter, Dr. Nausheen Hassan, she's going to talk about tele-radiology.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, my name is Nausheen Hassan. I'm a resident in radiology outside of Detroit in Michigan in the United States. I'm going to give a very brief talk on teleradiology and its potential future in Bangladesh. Just to give you a little bit of a background, I'm going to be speaking in terms of outsourcing radiology services from the United States abroad and how Bangladesh can participate in that. So what is teleradiology? It's the electronic transmission of radiologic images from one workstation to another. And in terms of international teleradiology, images are acquired in one country and then interpreted in another. Now, what modalities, excuse me. So is teleradiology being used? Now, in a study published in 2005 in the American Journal of Radiology, 56% of all practices in the United States have teleradiology systems in place. Now, a smaller fraction are the solo practitioners, and approximately 71% of the multi-radiology practices in the U.S. use teleradiology services. And the predominant use is for after-hours coverage. Usually overnight, midnight to 7 a.m. when there's no in-house radiologists, they use these services to have certified radiologists read these studies overnight. Now, what modalities are being covered? In 92% of the practices, teleradiology provides preliminary on-call interpretations, meaning that the images are taken in the institution, are sent abroad, or sent to another institution to be read, and a preliminary reading is given. Then in the morning, when the in-house staff returns, they give the final reading on the study. CT and ultrasound predominantly are the studies that are covered by teleradiology services. And the reason for that is whenever anyone walks through the emergency room in America, they either get an X-ray, an ultrasound, or a CT. There are very few stat indications for an MRI, so usually if those are being done overnight, they can be held off until the morning to be interpreted. Now, there are trends in teleradiology. There's an increase in the number of interpretations during the off hours, during the 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. period. And that, like I said, is because the ERs in America are always overburdened and they tend to order studies independent of time of day. So the number of interpretations overnight are equal to the ones during the day. So we need to have the flow continuing over the nighttime so that it's not backed up during the day and the patients can get through the emergency room. Now, some people predict that the amount of studies that'll be interpreted during the daytime hours will also increase in more rural areas because of lack of availability of radiologists, subspecialty radiologists in the rural areas. So they'll send these images to areas where they have on-call physicians to read these studies instead of dedicating an entire physician to that area. Now, there are many logistics that need to be covered before teleradiology can take place. Medical licensure, both in the country of service and in the state of service, medical malpractice coverage, being credentialed in the hospital where the studies are being interpreted, protecting medical information, there's internet and security issues, and then you also must have compatible workstations and ways of reporting your findings to the ordering hospital. Now, medical liability is a big issue in the United States. It's a very litigious country, unfortunately. So liability coverage is essential for every physician who works in the U.S. and for the U.S. Medical liability insurance can be provided either by the employer who provides the services or through contracts through other or international firms, insurance companies that offer coverage to both physicians who work in and out of the United States. Many policies, however, have limited coverage for overseas interpretations. The American College of Radiology has a task force for international teleradiology, and they've come forth with some findings. Now, they recommend that all international teleradiology be consistent with their technical standards, and those things include internet security protection, certain standard of resolution of the monitors that are being read, things of that nature. So all of those need to be met. Like I said before, the physician who reads the studies abroad must be licensed in the transmitting state within the U.S., have liability insurance, have credentialing and membership on the medical staff for the hospitals which they are interpreting for. They must also provide official authenticated written reports, and if they are providing ER services, they must immediately be available for consultation by phone. Now, if they're providing non-emergent services, such as MRIs that are obtained during the day, if they're not available by phone, they need to establish some other sort of communication so that the ordering physician can be in contact with them. They also must provide a quality assurance process and document that all of these quality standards are met. Now for a teleradiology system, there are 4 components. There's an image acquisition system that obtains the images in an electronically transmissible format. There also must be a storage system that keeps the images in electronic form both before and after transmission. Then there must be a way to transmit the images from the site of acquisition to the site of interpretation. And finally, there must be a display system for viewing the images at the reading site. Now, the term that we use to cover the world of digital radiology is PACS, and that stands for Picture Archiving and Communication System. And it's a system that manages the acquisition, transmission, storage, distribution, and display and interpretation of medical images. Now, this is what you see when you're looking at a computer monitor now. There's no longer films. All the X-rays, CTs, MRIs are all seen on the computer screen and adjusted, and the contrast is adjusted, the size is adjusted, magnification. Now, all of that is called PACS. Now, although many practices in the U.S. are still converting over to PACS, there are many modalities that are acquired inherently in a digital format, such as CT, MRI, and ultrasound. Therefore, they can be transmitted in digital form without being converted from analog to digital like many plain films are. Now, there's another term that we use, and that's called DICOM, and it stands for Digital Imaging and Communications in Medicine. And it's a standard by which images can be sent from one imaging system made by any vendor and be acknowledged by the receiving system. For example, if someone has a GE system in the States, they have a GE CT machine and a GE PAC station, and it's going to be read in Bangladesh or in India where they have a Toshiba system, they will be able to communicate with each other and there'll be no loss or misinterpretation of information. Now, there are some specifications for PACS. Without going into too many details, certain modalities require just a small matrix. They do not require a very high resolution, such as CT, MRI, ultrasound, and nuclear medicine. Unfortunately, these are the ones that are most commonly used in teleradiology. There are some other forms of other modalities that do require quite large matrices and require a large amount of information, such as digital x-rays and digital mammography. Unfortunately, those are ones that are not done stat. Internet connections, another important part of the puzzle. If you look here on this chart, if you use a standard dial-up modem, it can take up to 20 minutes for a digital x-ray to come across the line. Or if you're looking at a chest CT, it can take up to 2 hours. But as you get faster and faster internet connections, it's just a matter of milliseconds for the images to be sent over. Now, filling the void, how can we be involved? Where is this void that we need to fill? And the answer to that question is after-hours coverage. I know that in the United States, a very big marketing tool that they use to encourage radiologists to join your practice is that we provide night hawk services. You do not have to take call. You can sleep at home at night, and we'll provide services by having another organization read our studies overnight. That's a very big marketing tool that they use in the States to try and get new radiologists to join their companies. So as a result of that, there's a large void. Someone needs to be reading those studies from the hours of midnight to 7 a.m. So that's where we can come and try and fill the void. Like I said before, there are many issues that need to be overcome. Maintaining the privacy of personal medical information, the ability to ensure high quality, to provide malpractice liability, and to address reimbursement. Currently in the United States, state and federal programs do not reimburse non-US state physicians who practice medicine remotely in the United States. So what ends up happening is the hospitals or the radiology groups that hire the teleradiology services pay a per study fee out of their pocket to cover the after-hours coverage, and then they themselves they bill themselves through the insurance companies and get reimbursed that way. So who's eligible for this? Who can take part in this teleradiology practice? Retired U.S. trained licensed radiologists. And like I mentioned when I started the study, this is just because U.S. is where I practice, this is all geared towards that. So in order to practice reading studies from the United States. So who's eligible? Retired U.S. trained licensed radiologists who perhaps want to still continue working but don't want the stressful lifestyle that they had while they were in the States, they can come back to Bangladesh. They already have their license taken care of. They're already accredited at certain hospitals, so they don't have all that red tape to go through. The only thing they'll have to establish is their medical liability insurance. Also, you can have people who go to school here in Bangladesh or within this region and just go to the States to receive their training in radiology. That way, while they're there, they get their U.S. licensing. They can establish. I'm sorry, it keeps jumping ahead. They can establish their credentialing in certain hospitals and then come back to Bangladesh and establish their practice here. That way, they can be reading and they can be paid in the U.S. dollar while working at their leisure here, since it'll be almost a 12-hour time difference. Also, the people eligible, trained radiologists who have received the quote-unquote equivalent training to those providers that are reading at the institution in the United States. This, however, becomes a little bit more complicated because of licensing, malpractice, and marketability, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So technologically, Bangladesh currently has the internet speeds available to efficiently and securely transfer data from the States to here and then transmit the images back and the report back. Now, if you're only going to be providing image interpretation to those modalities that require the lower resolution, such as CT, MRI, and ultrasound, costs can be cut down. You do not need to buy the high-resolution monitors that can cost $50,000 to $100,000 for a PAC station. This way, if you keep to the lower resolution monitors, you can just use the regular monitors that you buy for your home computers. And luckily, these are also the modalities that are most often covered by teleradiology. Now, in terms of marketability, what countries are doing are taking advantage of the time difference and providing the after-hours coverage. And the countries that are kind of ahead of the game, India, Australia, and Israel. That's really who we should look towards to see where we need to go, which direction, try and kind of use their example for ours. Issues, again, that we need to cover: medical malpractice coverage, obtaining licensure and credentialing at U.S. hospitals where the services are being provided, establishing fast internet connections, efficient workstations, and developing interpersonal skills to communicate with the physician in the United States. So that's really all I wanted to talk about, just a very brief introduction. But teleradiology is something that's a wave of the future, and I think Bangladesh is equipped to partake in that.
I'm Dr. Dhaka. I'm a radiologist in United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi. This is a good chance. I just want to know if there is any emergency to diagnose a case. Suppose we are in problem, we don't know what can it be. In that case, NRB, how can you contribute in shortest possible time to come to a diagnosis? And how can you help the Bangladeshi people to raise their standard? Is it there a change of something, some like
I'm sorry, I'm not really equipped to answer that question because I don't know what kind of relationship Bangladesh has with other hospitals already in the States. From what I understand, there are relationships in Singapore and Bangkok and other Eastern countries, but I'm not really sure what sort of relationship there is. But once that relationship is established with the hospital or with the practice in the United States, then it can only be a matter of 15, 20, 30 minutes from sending the images to receiving a reply. So the capability is there once the relationships have been established.
I think Dr. Saiful Hassan is also going to take part of this question.
My own experience, I'm Shafil Hassan. I'm a gastroenterologist. I also happen to be a dad. I have been to the Square Hospital, and what I have learned in the last 2 days is they have the PAC system at Square, and I believe they probably have that at Apollo Hospital as well, and probably more than just the two. They do the consultations online with the PAC system with affiliated hospitals in Singapore, Bangkok, and also 2 stations in India. They have not been able to establish a communication with the United States, partly because of the malpractice issue. And when they get the reports from interpretation, it is not really a report, second opinion, like they get it on by email. The United States opinion, as an opinion, can also be provided by a radiologist with which person you can have a consultation, but you cannot have a contractual obligation because if there's any interpretation that has been subject to error, then the malpractice comes over. But as the Bangladeshi Americans, we definitely have a whole number of radiologists who are more than willing and happy to do a consultation networking throughout the global world.
Good evening, I'm Rajiv Ahmed, a journalist. You just mentioned right now that high-speed internet is a must, but in Bangladesh, 1 megabits per second of internet costs $1,000. So how we can overcome this? I know it is a relevant question, but this is a factor that should be taken note of.
Absolutely an issue, and I wasn't sure technically what kind of internet connections we had here in Dhaka and the expense of it, but I think the way that you need to cover that is in the cost. Once you establish a relationship and establish this relationship with another hospital, then you need to offset the cost by providing, increasing the charges to offset the cost. I don't really know what other option we have until we have faster, more inexpensive internet connections available.
I'm the managing director of the first telemedicine technology company in Asia. It's the Telemedicine Reference Center Limited. We have been doing teleradiology with University of Nebraska Medical Center and Ann Arbor, Michigan since 2001. And we have seen our main barrier is the cost of internet. And my colleagues in Bangalore, they are doing the other way, the night-hawk people. And Dr. Sanjay, he's doing it for American patients during the night time. And he's from Yale. So in terms of Bangladesh infrastructure, it's very difficult to cut down the cost per reading. And when we do consultation, take interpretation from USA, we pay like $100 to $150 per reading, when it is MRI or CT scan. But if it is, for radiology, a simple X-ray, it costs more because of the size of the file. But you have shown one important thing here, the CT, which requires low resolution, and the 12-bit, is it absolutely necessary as per RCA standard or RSNA standard?
Yeah, those are all the images, all the numbers that I gave are from the American College of Radiology standards. So that is what would be required.
Our next presenter is Dr. Masoom Ali. Professor Masoom Ali is a distinguished professor of statistics from Ball State University, Indiana. He's going to present a paper on higher education opportunities for Bangladeshi students in the USA. I would say that it's going to be very interesting because I know Sir has been helping many Bangladeshi students from last 30 years. Actually, he has been actually providing also financial aid to many Bangladeshi students in the US.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. It's nice to be here. I left almost 50 years ago, and I just completed 50 years as a practicing and teaching statistician. I'm at Ball State University. It's one of the major universities in Indiana besides Purdue and Indiana University. Let me just say first that my wife always tells me that those who are teachers, they talk too much. So in order to not to do that, what I will do, part of my presentation would be PowerPoint, and part of the things would be, I just jotted down, so you just bear with me. I will try to do it in 15 minutes that I'm allotted. Might be a couple of minutes less or more. Anyway, well, when I sent the title of my talk, it said how to help our Bangladeshi students in their pursuit of higher education. Now, when I came to Dhaka, I looked at the program. I found my, title of my talk is Higher Education Opportunities for Bangladeshi Students in the USA. So I don't know on which topic I'll be talking, but no matter what, it would be regarding higher education My expertise is in statistics, not in this kind of popular talks. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to go through some slides where I'll more or less give my thoughts about education. This is not an exhaustive list, but I'll try to just go over something that I thought would be kind of interesting. Well, this is, of course, mine. So, education is a very important ingredient for both intellectual and material development. Education enables us to receive information from the external world, to acquaint ourselves with past history and receive all necessary information regarding the present and the future. One of the most important aspects of a civilized society is to strive for equality amongst people and to offer hope for the people who are less fortunate. A civilized society wants not only its people to be educated, but also ahead in technological advancement. Education not only polishes up a society, but is also important to make society civilized. Education is not simply the act of gathering facts and theories, but it is a process through which individual progresses. We need a real commitment to education. Without the realization that education is critical for economic conscience, but also for society as a whole, we as a society will not progress. As a matter of fact, we may not survive. Education is the backbone upon which the future society will be based. If we don't realize this and act upon this realization, then our search for this type of society will be in vain. The foundation for much of our lives is laid in early youth. Parents and guardians have a specific and important role to play. Parents should try to create a home environment where education is respected and where education can flourish. The best way to improve the overall health for individuals and society as a whole is to ensure that every child gets an opportunity to succeed at school and continue on post-secondary education. I think the key word is succeed. This is very important. In today's environment, the high-value output demands workers with creativity, cognitive abilities, and skills to interact with challenging technologies. An educated workforce is a must if our economy is to enjoy gains in productivity and living standards. An investment in education is associated with higher probability of employment. More indicative of the economic value of education is that workers with college degrees earn a higher salary. Economic achievement and educational achievement are intertwined. Although good education not only opens doors for higher standard of living, it also instills in students moral values and ethical behaviors. In our attempt to encourage students to do well, we must not forsake our responsibilities to give them a solid grounding in those topics that will help them do good. How can we help our youth? We can form groups regionally or nationally to provide expertise through workshops, internet, and other forms of communication to prepare study goals, career suggestions, etc. Organizations like NRB scholars can take leadership in this regard. Undergraduate education. We can provide an introduction to the degrees available in the United States, the different types of institutions, and some key terms and ideas our children will come across if they want to study at a US university or college. We can provide information to our children about state, public institutions, private institutions, and community colleges. We can provide information to our children about professional education. Career-oriented education is often a part of United States institutions of higher learning. We can provide information about professional education in the US. We can provide information to our children living in Bangladesh about distance education. Highly disciplined students who desire a United States degree without leaving the home country for long periods of time are not disqualified from a US education. We can explain the new trend of distance learning. This distance learning, as you know, is getting more and more popular. We can provide information to our children about opportunities for funding. There are opportunities for undergraduate scholarships and funding that our children, even their guardians, are not aware of. Now, for graduate education, actually, I have been involved all last 40 years with graduate education. I was the director of graduate programs for the last 40 years at Ball State University. So I was more involved with graduate education there. We can provide an introduction to the degrees available in the United States and the different types of institutions. Choosing the best graduate program. Students should exercise careful decision-making when choosing between the thousands of degree-granting colleges and universities and the many graduate programs offered by each institution of higher learning. We can offer a 4-step approach to guide this process. Step 1, define education and career goals. Step 2, consult an USA Education Information and Advising Center. Step 3, develop a short list of programs. And step 4, decide where to apply. We can provide information about admission requirements and entrance examinations. Admission to most graduate schools requires a strong academic background, command of the English language, adequate financial resources, and perhaps a strong score on a standardized test like the graduate record exam. Preparing successful applications. Application packages require a great deal of preparation and planning. We can give some information to guide the process to follow and the materials to submit. The application process, a timetable and checklist. Plan to begin higher education search. Plan to begin higher education searches a year in advance. We can help build a timetable that will give some specifics regarding what should be done and by when. We can provide information about funding and scholarship opportunities, potential research projects, potential supervisors. We can build a database of Bangladeshi expertise and help our youth to locate jobs, especially for those who are already in the US, getting help regarding work permits, visas, and immigration process. Things we have done, tell our experiences, and especially my experience at Ball State University with graduate students and with visiting faculty. I do not know how much time I have left. I have still plenty of time, I guess. I talk fast too. So yesterday at the opening ceremony, I heard Dr. Hafiz G.S. Siddiqui, who is the Vice Chancellor of North-South University, kind of pleading to the Bangladeshi educators working in developing countries to help Bangladeshi students in the pursuit of higher education. And I thought that this talk is really a timely talk after hearing him speak about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, what I have done, just by myself. I cannot speak for others, but when I went to USA in 1969, I was there not because I was choosing a career in US. I was already working with the government of Pakistan. I was on leave, and somehow I'm not going to all that story. This country got divided and all this, and I just was in the US. I was in Canada where I did my degree, and I got a call from US if I would like to, get a teaching position. So I just got stuck, but my heart was in Bangladesh because this is where I grew up. And this is unlike now when I get my student, the first thing they ask me, sir, is there any possibility of staying in this country? But when we went, it was, how to come back and get back to this country. So when I went there, I figured I wanted to know how to bring some of the, students to my university, some students from Bangladesh to my university. And I think you all know that there is a dearth of graduate students, especially math and sciences in the US. Right now I have two students, one from Chittagong University, one from, I believe, Jahangirnagar University. Now I've retired, but even though I've retired, I think, it will, there will be a flow because the department knows, and all of these students have done very well. They are very well placed in life. They are working in very good universities. One of my most recent students is working as an assistant professor at University of Pittsburgh, which is a very fine school. So I just would share something, what I have to do sometimes as a professor there to help my fellow Bangladeshi students. I give you a couple of examples, and I think you will be able to relate to those situations. Now, some of the, when these applications come, of course I look at it as the graduate director and I approve. And when assistantships are given, it finally goes through the channels and it goes to the dean and others. And in one case he was a very good student. He was first class passed and everything. But then the dean questioned, how come he got, 18 out of 50, 21 out of 50, these are all in subsidiary subjects. So I had to explain that these students are more concerned with the honors courses because in those days, now things have changed. The class, first class, second class are determined by the honors courses, not by the subsidiary courses. So they really neglect that. As long as they pass, that's good enough. So somebody had to tell him this person was really rejected. But then he was finally accepted, he got assistantship and he did very, very well. Because he's a good student, he just neglected. Sometimes, the certificates, and we know that sometimes we don't have strong, good record keeping. Even, I think most of our birthdays are on February 1 or January 1 or something. And we have to really explain this to somebody. And so then this is how I try to help. My Indianapolis airport is 70 miles from my house. I would go and pick the students. They would stay in my house for 4 or 5 days before they could get a place to live. And so I think if we can do something like that, at least we feel good, in our hearts. And last, I would just share this with you. Of course, when I give lectures in US, I tell them that I cannot change my accent because, my accent is highly influenced by my mother tongue. But I'll try to be as clear as possible. Now, when we bring the students to Bangladesh, to US, as part of their teaching assistantship, they have to teach a class. So then I get a lot of flack from the students. They say, we don't understand. So I devised a course. I devised what's called a research methods course, where these students, of course there are American students and other students, Chinese, all kinds of students, they have to give a talk. They have to give a series of talks over the semester. And I would especially pay attention to my Bangladeshi students, because when they say zero, I said, make sure you say zero, otherwise they will not understand. When they say measure, I said, make sure you say measure, otherwise they will not understand. So I really I'm almost like parenting them. I sit down and I have done that, and I had over the last 40 years, many students who I'm so happy that they are very well placed in their lives. And I would just end with saying that I've not only just brought students, I've also brought visiting professors who gained by doing research with researchers there and also by teaching courses. And also, some of them were paid quite well, not in US standard, but I think in Bangladesh standard. After 9 months, if you come back with $25,000 or $30,000 saving, that's a good income, good saving for someone in Bangladesh. So I have tried as much as I could all these years, and I really regret that I had to take this, I had to retire because sometimes you see a facade, I don't look that way, but I have a heart problem, I have a diabetic, I'm all kinds of things. I especially retired because of my feet, that is the last thing or first thing you get. But I'm very happy that I could touch the lives of so many Bangladeshi students. And if there are others, I'm sure there are others like me elsewhere, I don't know. But my idea is if we can join this NRB scholar organizations like that, set up a network, and especially like people like me who would be now retired, I have more time to spend. I think we can really help a lot of students. And one thing I would say, sometimes we think of brain drain. Well, look at someone who is in the US and who had come up with the so-called filter for arsenic. I think if he would have been here, I don't know if he would have had the resources to do those kind of research. So even though we are all there, we could be an asset. Even though we are living outside the country, we could still be an asset for this country, and I think we are. And if I know there are some students here, he told me that they will be waiting to talk to me after the talk, so I will just end here. I would like to entertain questions. I had a lot to say, but I just thought that for the time's sake, I will end here.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraint, I would just accept 2 questions at this moment, but please stay here. You can talk to the sir, sir, after the session.
My question is very simple. You said about the online course, the distance education, and so far I know this online degree and the distance education degree is not recognized in Bangladesh. Then what is your suggestion to make it recognized?
I don't have a quick answer, but let me tell you something. Many years ago, in my younger days, American degrees were not recognized also, many American degrees, if I may say, except some big schools. The degrees only from England and other places. I think it will take a little time because this is a new idea, and even in US, not all distance education degrees are recognized, but you have to wait and give a little time. But what I was saying that there are opportunities available. This is not that distance education is not yet fully developed there even, but this should be a channel later, for people to get degrees, and I think with time this should be recognized everywhere.
Okay, the next question is from the lady here.
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Arfin Jahan and I oversee the Education Advising Center in US Embassy Dhaka. And I'm very glad that Dr. Ali has touched base on the areas where we provide the services. And he also mentioned that students should consult the Education Advising Center. And I certainly encourage every student who is interested to pursue their higher education to come to our center where we provide the services. We provide individual counseling, you can take tests, mock tests on standardized exams. We have a wide array of services, including a full-fledged library that you can use. And Dr. Ali has also mentioned that that in graduate level, there are financial aid scholarships available, and we keep those books and information where you can take a look at it and use those. This is actually not a question, this is just an informative comment, so I encourage every student to visit our center. It's located in Bonani, next to Bonani Graveyard, and our phone number is 883-7150 up to 4. And it's called the American Center. It used to call USIS, United States Information Service. Now it's called the American Center. The phone number is 883-7150 up to 4. And it's located next to Bonani Graveyard. It's called the American Center. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased that I have such a resource person just present amongst us. So you just get in touch with those who are thinking.
One more question, the last question.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm a Dhaka University student of BBA faculty, and my question is that as you are a science professor, science field professor, you have nothing mentioned about the MBA degree or business faculty or business related in a degree in USA. So my question is that is there a feasible chance for us, the Bangladeshi students, to get a postgraduate degree in USA, in the field of business faculty actually?
I think the competition would be very tough because a lot of American students, go for degrees in business, But I know several students, several people who went there, and as a matter of fact, I have, my wife has a nephew. He went to UPenn, and he did his master's and everything, and he's now very well placed in life. So the only thing I would say that you have to be really pretty strong, very good, to compete with them. But yes, there are possibilities. You have to prepare a little bit more than students from sciences and math and sciences, because the competition is, it's just demand and supply.
Sir, can I take? Okay, let me also make one more comments about the business school education. If you want to go to the US in MBA or other program like business related, you can also talk to me. I have been there for 15 years. I was there also. I'm not an NRB right now. I'm an RB. Okay, so we are going to talk, and also I'll also one more question first.
Sir, I am a student of your subject, statistics. So actually I want to do my master's from USA. So what are the criteria I should obtain for a scholarship, for achieving a scholarship or grants? And what are the GRE marks and others, please?
So let me first, if you want to apply where I am, what I do really is I bring the students to do a master's there. This is like a stepping stone. Then I try to place them in other universities, like I talked about, like Dr. Kabir, who was placed at Harvard. When it was very difficult for students to take GRE in Dhaka, they had to go somewhere outside the country. So what I did, I waived that GRE so that the students could come. So still it is there. Now that I am not there, might be within few years they would change. So if you want to go, apply and write to me. I'm still there. I have an office, because I have my office, the same office that I was in for the last 40 years. So I have my office. I'm still kind of active there, except teaching. So if you write to me, I will direct it to the right person. And I think if you're good.
Thank you, sir.
Pardon?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah,
So-
please feel free
so
to
you
talk
can-
to him after the session.
You can talk to me after.
And I'm sure that you got the right person. Okay, you are a student from statistics department, and he is a professor, and I know him from 30 years back actually. So he is the appropriate person to get you.
We'll talk about those who are here who.
Let me.
So I'll give, because others are waiting.
Let me
so-
remind you again, please turn off or switch off your mobile phone. Our next speaker is a distinguished speaker, Dr. Fakhruddin Ahmed. Dr. Fakhruddin Ahmed is the first Rhodes Scholar from Bangladesh. He's a journalist and he's an English teacher. He's going to present a paper, how to improve Bangladesh's image and promote its interest abroad. Thank you.
After this technical presentation by Dr. Narshin, and a very useful one by Professor Ali about how to go for higher education in the US, I think mine is a kind of change of pace. but it's very important. It has to do with what the expatriates can do for their country when they're abroad. Like, expatriate Bangladeshis can do their native country a big favor. They can project and promote the interest of Bangladesh in whichever country they reside in. They can be especially effective in some of the Western countries like the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, where there is a substantial Bangladeshi expatriate population. Percentage-wise, I think in the UK we have the maximum number of expatriate Bangladeshis, so the UK Bangladeshis can accrue a lot of benefit for their motherland from the government of the United Kingdom. Now, the starting point for any good public relations work is the projection of a good image of the country. Okay? And for a good image, one needs good substance. If the substance underneath the image is sturdy, then no amount of polish will bring out the shine. Now let's talk about substance in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a moderate Muslim nation that has had 2 female as prime ministers and leaders of the opposition for 16 years. And obviously it's a pioneer in the microcredit and women's empowerment phenomena in the world. And also Bangladesh is friendly to the United States and also the West. So we don't really need to do much. All we need to do is project the image of Bangladesh faithfully to the world, because this is the image that Western nations, including the US, would like to project to the rest of the world, Muslim world, that Bangladesh is the kind of model many of the Muslim countries should be emulating. Now, to embellish a good image abroad, it helps to have good things happening in the country. And now democracy, even in its imperfect form, is prized in the West, as you all know. Now, peaceful practice of democracy is an invitation for foreign investment, direct investment. Now, if good things are not happening in your country, then if you try and turn it around and project it as something positive, that is termed as spin, and you don't want to spin your country into something it's not. Now, while projection of a good image is beneficial, image does not equal influence. Just as access does not mean access to authority, does not mean the power to wield it. Now, America does accept lobbying from foreign countries. So, to derive maximum benefit from a country like the US, the foreign nation, like Bangladesh in this case, needs to lobby the United States. Okay. Now, of course, to do that, it's easier said than done. Lobbying is not easy. And even when we hire professionals, the expatriates who are doing the lobbying has to be media savvy, American politics savvy, and obviously lobbying savvy. These are acquired attributes. You don't have them. They have to be mastered over time. Immigrants do not become lobbyists or image makers overnight. Now, it is important to project a good image of the country for several reasons. A good image makes lobbying easier. On the other hand, a bad image can make life very difficult if you're trying to lobby. Now, a good image makes the US, for instance, makes the US feel good about a country, okay, and is obviously favorably disposed towards it as a result. For instance, although the rest of the world may have a lot of questions about the Israeli policy towards the Palestinians, because of tireless PR work, Israel is a feel-good country in the US. Now, on the other hand, with all pervasive negative publicity and negative image, countries like Iran and Syria are pariahs in the US. Now, it's instructive to give some examples of good PR work. The best lobbyist in the US is known as AIPAC,
it's not the pact in the sense Dr. Nausheen was talking about. This is a shorthand or acronym for American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee. I distinctly remember in 1981, President Reagan was trying to sell some AWAC planes, early warning planes to Saudi Arabia, and AIPAC put up such a tremendous fight that although the measure it passed the Congress by a narrow margin, it is said that subsequently President Reagan cleared all the important appointments with AIPAC first before proposing it. Now, Jewish Americans follow American politics very closely. Anytime they see somebody promising, they invite them to Israel for a state visit. And guess what? One of the visitors was someone from the state of Texas in 1994 who was just elected governor of Texas. It was George W. Bush. And President Bush, I don't want to be unkind to him, but people do say that he hadn't traveled much or read much. So once he went to Israel, and obviously the Israelis told him about the Jewish history and the history of the state of Israel and suffering of the Jewish people, and he sold all of those in. And as you can see, I don't know if this was the sole reason, but Mr. Bush, President Bush, has been probably one of the biggest supporters of Israel among the American presidents ever. Now, so if any country wants to lobby or influence U.S. foreign policy, it probably should emulate the Israeli paradigm. And once again, it needs citizens first of all, you need citizens from that country, and they have to have, not only they have to be politically savvy, but they must have economic and political clout as well. Contrary to what people believe, it's not the Jewish vote that garners them so much influence. It is something else. Their number is amplified 100 times, or more than 100 times, through their ownership of the opinion-forming electronic and print media, disproportionate representation in Congress, and the overall wealth which they lavish on anyone who supports Israel and against anybody who is even remotely neutral on the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. Now, to be fair to the Jewish Americans, although economically and militarily Israel is more powerful than all the 22 Arab nations combined, to the Jewish Americans feel that Israel is always under an existential threat and needs the USA support for its survival. Now, Jewish Americans are as divided as any other Americans on most issues, but what unifies them is their support for Israel. In the faculty of universities and in the medical and legal profession. And they know the political machine of the US and how to influence politicians or even the president like the palm of their hand. So it will take many more years for more recent immigrants like those from Bangladesh to be as politically sophisticated. But I know that in Dr. Nausheen's slides, Israel came up more than once. So once again, we could use Israel as a model. Now, expatriates from other countries are learning fast. Recently, Indian Americans were successful in breaking up the US Congress's initial resistance to the US-India nuclear pact. And in 2002, when there was a massacre of the Muslims in the state of Gujarat, and I remember there was hardly a ripple in the American media. And I don't know if anybody has seen the movie Waters, which was shown screened in the US last year. And that, I didn't even know this myself. I learned that about 32 million widows, there are 32 million widows in India without any hope of remarriage. And now Indian feminists in India and in the US remain mostly silent on this. It's not only India, Pakistanis have also been successful. There's a Senator, Larry Pressler, from, I think he's from Idaho, who was instrumental in enacting the Prescott Amendment, which put sanctions on Pakistan for its nuclear program. So the Pakistanis pulled the resources, and guess what? They defeated him. Now, the question is, how are the Bangladeshis doing? Okay. Now, I'm not going to win too many friends here, but I'm going to say what I have to say anyway. Okay. I think we can do better. I think our main shortcoming is our unity. And the way I see it, the expatriate Bangladeshis are honor-bound to assist their country of origin in any way they can. This means being true ambassadors. Now, with Bangladeshi Americans, it seems to me that we are our worst enemies. Like I said, we have a habit of washing our dirty laundry in public. To me, it seems sometimes as though some of us feel that unless the party that I favor, political party that I support, is not in power, Bangladesh is not worth defending. We really have to rise above these partisan feelings. We should not, it's always good to support a party, but we should not be, we should not do this in exclusion of the interests of Bangladesh itself. If the party I support is not in power, should I be bad-mouthing Bangladesh to foreign agencies and running to foreign agencies complaining about it? Okay. Now, running to foreign embassies for redressing grievances, to me that's colonial mentality. We have to grow out of this. A lot of times we quote agencies like Transfer International because we always come down with the lowest in their ranks, and then we quote these to criticize Bangladesh government. Now my question to them is, why is it that they seem to exclusively focus on the shortcomings of poor nations and never really measure or publicize the much more serious crimes that developed nations do? Now maybe those who do so have been granted wisdom that's been denied me, but I honestly don't see how criticizing Bangladesh abroad helps Bangladeshis at home. Now, the point is that Bangladesh, hopefully, is a nation that's permanent, and its interests are paramount, whereas any political party that's in power is temporary, as are its interests. Now, no government is perfect, and a citizen has a right to criticize it. I think that such criticism serves interests of Bangladesh best when we confine it to the borders of Bangladesh. I don't know if you know, last week George Clooney of Syriana fame, he was in Dubai, and a reporter asked him, Mr. Clooney, do you think President Bush is a terrorist? Now, Mr. Clooney, a famous actor, he is a harsh critic of President Bush. But you know what he replied, and I paraphrase, he said, do you really think I'll come all the way to Dubai and call the President of the US a terrorist? And likewise, it's inconceivable for the Speaker of the US House of Congress, Nancy Pelosi, to go to the UK and badmouth President Bush to the Fleet Street journalist. If she has any complaints against Bush, and she does plenty, she will air it to the New York Times or local American newspapers. Likewise, we have a right to take our government to task, and let's criticize them as severely as we can in the Bangladeshi press. Now, if we do so in the New York Times, I think that's really contrary to the interest of Bangladesh. Now, to paraphrase Marcus Brutus in Julius Caesar, in a completely different context, our motto should be not that I like Awami League or BNP less, but that I like Bangladesh more. I'm not really done. So. Okay. Expatriate Bangladeshi should meet with the elected representatives of and business leaders of the countries that they reside in and put in a good word for Bangladesh. They should write good things about Bangladesh in the newspapers, and when others do so, they should support them. Many of our Bangladeshis are beginning to acquire fame in Bangladesh, and when we do so, we must mention that we are from Bangladesh, and we should thank Bangladesh for rearing us. I'm sure many assembled here have done a lot for Bangladesh abroad than I have, but I have always I've made a point of responding to anything remotely critical of Bangladesh in the American newspaper, and I've done it in the New York Times Time magazine for over 30 years. Now, this is regardless of the party or the government in power in Bangladesh, because we shouldn't really care. And this, I'm sorry, I hope this is not. It doesn't sound like self-serving, but my boss in America used to call me Bangladesh patriot. There was one time I wrote an article, op-ed piece in the New York Times it was in 1988, and the title of the piece was Bangladeshi and Proud. And you know what happened? Hundreds of Bangladeshis wrote back criticizing me, and 2 letters were published, one from a Bangladeshi, one from West Bengali, also criticizing me. Anyway, now there is a saying that Bangladesh is in the headlines only when natural or man-made disasters hit it. True, Bangladesh is front and center when we have cyclones or when we have floods or when we have cider like the one we had last month. But the reason for that is I don't think they pick on Bangladesh. Obviously, the media gravitates towards what is really news as opposed to what is noise. By and large, I think American media have been fair to Bangladesh. I know that they have covered Dr. Yunus's Grameen Bank and women's empowerment through the 1980s and 1990s, even before President Clinton became a promoter and admirer of Dr. Yunus. And in 1989, a substantial chunk of America's, one of the most popular news magazines, 60 Minutes, devoted time to Dr. Yunus and what he was doing. Now, foreign media has also been negligent at times. For instance, I don't think I ever saw any kind of appreciation or praise for Bangladesh for having these 2 ladies as prime ministers and leaders of the opposition for the last 16 years. How are we doing, Hannah? Can I just finish?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. There are many more things expatriate Bangladeshis can do to help their native land in the US. For instance, since the lifting of the quotas on garment industry, Bangladeshi garment exporters are languishing, and maybe we could do something, ask the US government to give us some quotas so that we're protected. Now, next to garment industry, the number 2 foreign exchange earner for Bangladesh is export of shrimps to the US and the European Union. Now, health questions have been raised about our shrimps that are being exported, and we must make sure the expatriates must make sure that our farmers are not unfairly penalized. The problem is that antibiotics have been detected in the shrimps that we export to the US and the European Union. And actually, Dhaka University Chemistry Department has done a lot of studies and have come up with the reason. They trace the health issue to antibiotics. Now, where we can help expatriate Bangladeshis who are scientists is we can suggest antibiotics that when used in the hatching and the rearing process will eventually degrade into something more harmless, and which will be acceptable to the European Union and also the US. Now, through consultations with the expatriate Bangladeshis, Bangladesh government must invite key American and Western legislators and businessmen to Bangladesh for official visits. And some years ago, I actually asked the chairman of the Bangladesh caucus in the US Congress whether he had visited Bangladesh, and the answer was no. That's really our shortcoming. We should have had him visit Bangladesh long times ago. And we may not be the wealthiest nation on earth, but our people are friendly and generous, and anybody who visits Bangladesh goes back and develops a soft corner for Bangladesh. Now, there must be a quid pro quo in Bangladesh's relationship with other countries. Now, with apologies to President John F. Kennedy, we should not only be asking our hosts what they can do for us, but we should also be asking them what we can do for them. Clearly, they are not going to ask us for money. there may be little political things that political favors that they may ask us. If it's not too difficult for us, we should seriously consider those. You know, it takes a little thing to impress people. I remember in 1993, the Mississippi River overflew its 100-year bank and flooded many Midwestern states, including Mark Twain's Hannibal. And Bangladesh government sent some tea. Okay? And you would think that it's a joke, but believe me, the governments of the Midwestern states were touched by it. They were profusely thanked Bangladesh. And you know, we garnered a lot of publicity. So recently, last month, the U.S. sent two ships to help cedar victims, and that was an act of goodwill. And you know, we should always try and reciprocate by doing something, just something in return, because selfishness in international relationships does not make a long-lasting selfishness does not make for a long-lasting relationship. Now, there are a lot of expatriates here, and I'll speak for them. I don't know about you, but personally, I feel great to the U.S. for accepting me, for offering me employment and a comfortable living for the last 30 years, and for helping raise my 2 sons in probably the most immigrant-friendly nation in the world. As I project a good image of Bangladesh in America and lobby for Bangladesh in America on behalf of Bangladesh, I must not turn a blind eye to the interest of the country. Finally, quid pro quo should be practiced in Bangladesh's relationships with foreign nations. We must not only focus on receiving, we must also be willing to reciprocate by giving. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question?
My name is Sarah Siddiqui. I'm the CEO of Experience Bangladesh in Austin, Texas. So our company is actually designed to promote the image of Bangladesh and promote conscious business development and sustainable tourism. You talked about lobbying and government development, government involvement from Bangladeshi side. As a private enterprise, what are some effective channels we can actually use as a private enterprise in the United States to promote the image of Bangladesh, like in the media or in, you talked about writing articles, but as something that would possibly cut down 10-15 years of work. I mean, I know there are no shortcuts, but
I really think you answered the question yourself. There's really no shortcut. It has. First of all, I don't think we're good writers. I think that's one of the problems, because it takes certain. Well, I'm kind of opening up a can of worms. It takes a certain proficiency, not only in international affairs, but also in English, to be able to write letters and articles that are positive, that will be acceptable for publication in the US media. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not really a lobbyist. I mean, what I said is in general. You probably have more experience in this. But it takes a lot of time. And if I may just add one more thing, for instance, these things are so critical. You wouldn't think that there will be lobbies against Bangladesh. Actually, there are. For instance, I talked about garment industry. There are people in the U.S. who wouldn't don't like that we use, let's say, younger people at work in the garment factories, and that they want to use that as to leverage some of their complaints about Bangladeshi textile export.
Thank you very much. Actually, due to time shortage, I cannot allow any more question. We have 3 presenters to go on. Let me just call our next presenter, the eminent historian, Professor Enamul Haq. Professor Enamul Haq, I think many of you already know him. He was the founder director general of Bangladesh National Museum and former Secretary Ministry of Culture, Government of Bangladesh. Many of you also know him from his television program. I think the name was Dhaka Hoy Nai Chokku Melia. So let's start. Let me go.
ধন্যবাদ
আমি এখানে উপস্থিত হয়ে মডারেটর ডক্টর হান্নান সাহেবকে জিজ্ঞেস করছিলাম যে বাংলায় বলতে পারি কিনা। উনি বললেন বলা যেতে পারে। আমি বললাম ইংরেজিতে কেন প্রসিডিংসটা হচ্ছে, কারণ আমরা তো সবাই বাঙালি, বাংলাদেশে সভা করছি। উনি বললেন যে কিছু সেকেন্ড জেনারেশন বাঙালি আছে, তাদের অসুবিধা হবে। আমি স্বীকার করি সেটা হতে পারে, কিন্তু তাদের কাছে আমার প্রত্যাশা হবে যারা সেকেন্ড জেনারেশন বাঙালি এসেছেন এখানে, অন্তত কয়েকদিনের জন্য পুরোপুরি বাঙালি হয়ে যান। এখানে এসেছেন সবার সমিতি করতে। তো আমি আমার বক্তব্যের প্রথমে এই অসাধারণ প্রবাসী বাঙালিদের সম্মেলন প্রথমবারের মতো বাংলাদেশে যারা আয়োজন করেছেন, স্কলার্স বাংলাদেশ এবং তাদের অনুষঙ্গী অন্যান্য প্রতিষ্ঠান, ব্যক্তিবর্গ এবং যারা এতে অংশগ্রহণ করতে দূর দূরান্ত থেকে এসেছেন, তাদের সকলকে আমি আমার ব্যক্তিগত অভিনন্দন জানাই। এ ধরনের একটা সম্মেলন আমাদের স্বাধীনতার 36 বছরে কেন হয়নি, এটা ভেবে আমি খুব আশ্চর্য হচ্ছি। আমরা অনেক রকমের সভা সমিতি করছি। আমাদের ঢাকা শহরে একসময় নাটক করার জন্য রেলওয়ে ঢাকা ডিভিশনের একটা নাট্যমঞ্চ ছিল, নাম হলো মাহবুব আলী ইনস্টিটিউট। আপনারা জানেন কোনো কোনো রেলওয়ে জংশনে ওই রেলওয়ের কর্মচারীদের সম্মেলনের জন্য, ক্লাব অ্যাক্টিভিটিসের জন্য 20-25 জন বসতে পারে বা এরকম, এই সমস্ত যে নাট্যশালা ছিল সেগুলো দিয়েই আমরা বাংলাদেশের অনেক সংস্কৃতি চর্চা করেছি সেগুলোতে। তারপরে এখন বাংলাদেশের এই শহরে আমি সেদিন এমনি হাতে গুনছিলাম 40টা মিলনায়তন আছে অন্তত, যেটা 25 বছর আগে 20টাও ছিল না। তো মিলনায়তন বহু ধরনের আছে, বহু আকারের আছে, খুব কম দামের আছে, অনেক বেশি দামের আছে, এইরকম আছে। এখানে তো হোটেলগুলো তো বেশ ভালোভাবে সাজসজ্জার সঙ্গে চলে, যাই হোক। তো হয়নি এটা, আমি সেই জন্য আমি ঠিক জানি না যে উদ্যোক্তারা কি এটাকে একটা বার্ষিক অনুষ্ঠান করবেন, সম্মেলন করবেন, নাকি 2 বছরে একবার করবেন, আমার জানা নেই। তবে বছরে অন্তত একবার যদি হয়, কারণ অনেকেই বাড়ি আসেন ডিসেম্বর জানুয়ারি এরকম সময়, হয়ে যেতে পারে। যদি না হয় অন্তত 2 বছরের জন্য একবার হয়, এই প্রত্যাশা রাখি। আমার বক্তব্যের বিষয় এটা, আমাকে যে সুযোগ দিয়েছেন আপনারা, আমি খুবই কৃতজ্ঞ। এই বিষয়টা আমি প্রস্তাব করে এর ভিতরে অন্তর্ভুক্ত করিয়েছি এবং যারা এটা গ্রহণ করেছেন তাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ। সাধারণত উন্নয়ন এবং আমাদের কি কর্তব্য, আমরা কি করতে পারি, সুযোগ সুবিধা কি দিতে পারি, পেতে পারি, এইসবই আলোচনা। আমি যখন প্রথম ওয়েবসাইটটা দেখি তার মধ্যে এরকম ছিল। তারপরে আমি একজন উদ্যোক্তাকে, যার সঙ্গে আমার যোগাযোগ হয়েছিল, যেমন সাব্বির আহমেদ, ওয়াশিংটনে, তো উনি বললেন যে এখানে এরকম হচ্ছে। এবং সেই দিন আমার ওখানে ডক্টর ফারুক সোবহান, প্রাক্তন পররাষ্ট্র সচিব এবং অ্যাম্বাসেডার, তিনি এসেছিলেন। তো তিনিও বললেন হ্যাঁ এরকম একটা হচ্ছে 27 তারিখ থেকে। তো আমি তখন বললাম যে ভাই, এই যে যারা প্রবাসী বাঙালি এখানে আসছেন, তারা হয়তো খুব সচেতনভাবে চিন্তা করেননি যে সংস্কৃতি বা ঐতিহ্যের সঙ্গে কিছু করবেন, এর সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করবেন, কিছু এমনি আসবেন, আত্মীয় স্বজন, বন্ধু বান্ধব, এরকম একটা সম্মেলন, কিছু আলোচনা হবে, লাঞ্চ ডিনার হবে, তারপর চলে যাবে। আমি আপনাদের কাছে অনুরোধ রাখবো এবং আপনাদের মাধ্যমে সকল অংশগ্রহণকারীর কাছে অনুরোধ রাখবো যে আমি যে কথাটা 10-15 মিনিট সময় পেয়েছি বলার জন্য, তার মধ্যে আপনাদেরকে সীমিত করতে চাই। সেটা হলো যে ঐতিহ্যের সঙ্গে সংশ্লিষ্ট জাতীয় পর্যায়ের যে সমস্ত প্রতিষ্ঠান আছে, সেগুলো পারলে সবকটা দেখবার চেষ্টা করবেন, না হলেও একটা বা একাধিক এরকম, যেমন বাংলা একাডেমি, জাতীয় জাদুঘর, শিল্পকলা একাডেমি, নজরুল ইনস্টিটিউট বা এই ধরনের প্রতিষ্ঠান যেগুলো আছে, সেগুলো আপনারা কোনো না কোনোভাবে দেখবার চেষ্টা, বিশেষ করে যেখানে দেখার বস্তু আছে। জাদুঘর, এটা আপনারা জেনে খুশি হতে পারেন যে এটা 1913 সালে ক্ষুদ্র একটা ঢাকা জাদুঘর ছিল এবং তখন সরকার একে দিত মানে 3,900 টাকা দিত, 3,920 টাকা দিত সারা বছরে। এই অবস্থায় প্রায় 1972-73 পর্যন্ত চলেছে। আমি 1962 সালে যখন যোগ দিই এখানে, তখন সরকারের কাছে একটা দরখাস্ত করলাম যে আমার বেতন হয় না কিন্তু এই টাকা, প্রথম দিন ঢুকেই বুঝলাম যে আমাকে চাঁদা তুলতে হবে। এবং আপনি বিশ্বাস করেন, আমি এখনো যে কাজ করছি এই চাঁদাই তুলছি সেই 62 সন থেকে। অবশ্য 62 সনের আগে ছাত্রাবস্থায় চাঁদা তুলেছি, সেটা অন্য কারণে, কিন্তু চাকরিতে বহাল থাকার জন্য চাঁদা তুলেছি। আমি রিটায়ার করেছি 1991 সালে, এই সম্পূর্ণ সময় চাঁদা তুলেছি। তো এখন একটা কাজ করছি, সেটার কথা আমি আসবো, সেখানেও চাঁদা তুলছি না। তো যাই হোক, এই ক্ষুদ্র জাদুঘরকে যে কোনো ভাবেই হোক আমার সৌভাগ্য হয়েছে তৃতীয় বিশ্বের বৃহত্তম জাদুঘরে রূপান্তরিত করা। এটা আপনারা খুবই কাছে, 100 কি 200 গজের মধ্যে হবে, 4 তলা ভবন। আমি যখন জাদুঘরে যোগ দিই তখন জাদুঘরটা ছিল 3-4টা ঘরে, 2800 বর্গফুট পরিমাণ জায়গা ছিল। আপনারা বুঝতে পারেন 2800। আমি যখন রিটায়ার করি তখন 3 লক্ষ বর্গফুট ফ্লোর এরিয়া রেখে এসেছি এবং 48টা গ্যালারি আছে। তৃতীয় বিশ্বের বৃহত্তম জাতীয় জাদুঘর। দিল্লি বলেন, কলকাতা বলেন, বেইজিং বলেন, টোকিও বলেন, মেলবোর্ন বলেন, আর যে কোনো শহর ল্যাটিন আমেরিকা দিয়ে নাম করুন, সব জায়গায় এগুলো সবগুলোর মধ্যে তুলনা করলে আমাদের এই জাদুঘর আকারে সবচাইতে বড়। যাই হোক, সেই জন্য এটাকে আপনারা ভুলে যাবেন না। এটা এছাড়া আমি ঐতিহ্যকে এইভাবে সংক্ষেপে ব্যাখ্যা করতে চাই যে আমাদের সাংস্কৃতিক ঐতিহ্য বা কালচারাল হেরিটেজ যেটা আমরা বলি, সেটা হলো আমাদের সাহিত্য। সাহিত্যের অঙ্গ আছে, কবিতা, গল্প, উপন্যাস, প্রবন্ধ ইত্যাদি আছে। সঙ্গীত আছে, সঙ্গীতের নানা রকমের প্রকার আছে। নৃত্য আছে, নৃত্যের নানা রকম প্রকার আছে। নাটক আছে। তারপর এর সঙ্গে আছে যেটা আমরা আমার বিভাগে যেটা পড়ে, বিশেষ করে আমি জাদুঘরে চাকরি করেছি, যে স্থাবর এবং অস্থাবর কিছু মানুষের সৃষ্ট শিল্পকর্ম, যেমন ভাস্কর্য, মূর্তি, যেমন আর্কিটেকচার, স্থাপত্য, যেমন চিত্রকলা, সে তালপাতার উপরে পেইন্টিং হোক, বা তুলট কাগজের উপরে হোক, বা এমনি কাগজের উপরে হোক, বা ইজেল প্যাস্টেল দিয়ে যেভাবে করেন এগুলো, এবং মুদ্রা বা শিলালিপি বা তাম্রলিপি। তাম্রলিপি মানে এখন যেমন কাগজের দলিল হয় জমি কেনা বেচা দানের জন্য, তখন প্রাচীনকালে মধ্যযুগে পর্যন্ত, মুসলমানরা আসার আগে পর্যন্ত এখানে তামার পাতের ভিতরে প্রায় 200টা মোটা তামার পাতের উপরে সংস্কৃত ভাষায় লেখা হতো দলিল। সেটা ভারতের এক প্রান্ত থেকে আর এক প্রান্ত পর্যন্ত, মানে ভারতবর্ষে গুজরাট থেকে আসাম পর্যন্ত সব জায়গাতে এরকম ভাবে হতো। এটা এই সমস্ত নিদর্শনগুলো, এগুলো হলো অস্থাবর, চলাচল করে, এক জায়গা থেকে আরেক জায়গায় নিয়ে যাওয়া যায়। এগুলো আমাদের ঐতিহ্যের অংশ, সাংস্কৃতিক ঐতিহ্যের অংশ। আর একটা ধরনের হলো যা নড়াচড়া করে না, বাড়িঘর, দালান কোঠা, মসজিদ, মন্দির, মাজার, দুর্গ, সেতু, প্রাসাদ, এসব যা জমির উপরে থাকে সেগুলো। আমি আপনাদের দৃষ্টি আকর্ষণ করবো একটা ব্যাপার, যে বাংলাদেশ, আমার থেকে তরুণতর বন্ধু ফখরুদ্দিন বলেছে অনেক কিছু আমাদের পজিটিভ আছে, নিশ্চয়ই আছে, এবং এই সাংস্কৃতিক ঐতিহ্যের কারণেও আমরা বিশ্বের কাছে অনেক বিষয়ে গর্ব করতে পারি আমরা, কিন্তু আমরা যথেষ্টভাবে এগুলো তুলে ধরতে পারিনি বিশ্বের কাছে। আপনারা জেনে আশ্চর্য হবেন, কেউ ক্ষুব্ধ হলে আমি খুশি হই। সেটা হলো যে বাংলাদেশ একটা ইউনিক কান্ট্রি, যা 75টা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের কোনো বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে বাংলাদেশের সাংস্কৃতিক ঐতিহ্যের এই যে অংশটা আমি বললাম, স্থাবর এবং অস্থাবর, মূর্তি, ভাস্কর্য, স্থাপত্য, মুদ্রা, শিলালিপি, তাম্রলিপি, এগুলো পড়ানোর কোনো ব্যবস্থা নাই এদেশে। আমরা যারা প্রাচীনকালের লোক, আমি 71 বছর পার হয়েছে আমার, পাকিস্তানি আমলে এক প্রফেসর ছিলেন, প্রফেসর আহমেদ হাসান দানি, তার কাছে আমি আর আমার স্ত্রী আমরা 1 বছর পড়াশোনা করেছিলাম MA ফাইনাল ইয়ারে। এরপরে তিনি চলে গেছেন, তারপরে আর এই বিভাগটা, এই ধরনের কোনো লেখাপড়ার কোনো ব্যবস্থা হয়নি। সংস্কৃত ভাষা প্রায় মারা গেছে, মারা যায়নি, আমাদের দেশে এখনো 20% বা 15% হিন্দু আছে, তারাও সংস্কৃত চর্চা তেমন করে না। কিন্তু সংস্কৃত ভাষা এবং দেবনাগরী লিপিতে যদি আপনি কোনো রাষ্ট্রীয় গোপন তথ্য পাচার করে দেন, এটা কেউ পড়বার পারে না, এমন অবস্থা হয়েছে। আরবি ফার্সি কিছু আছে এখনো, মাদ্রাসার কারণে এটা নিয়ে এখনো চর্চা আছে, কিন্তু সেটাও যদি 200-300 বছরের আগেকার কোনো শিলালিপি পড়েন, আপনার একটা মসজিদের উপরে লাগানো আছে, ওই আল্লাহ বা বিসমিল্লাহ বা এই ধরনের মোহাম্মদ 2-একটা শব্দ হয়তো আপনি পড়লেও পড়তে পারেন, বাকিগুলো পড়তে পারবেন না। এগুলো বিদ্যার দরকার আছে, প্রশিক্ষণের প্রয়োজন আছে, কিন্তু বড়ই দুঃখের বিষয় যে আমাদের দেশে এখন এই বিষয়ে কোনো ব্যবস্থা নেই প্রশিক্ষণে। আমি যে রোল অফ প্রবাসী বাঙালি যেটা বলেছি, আমি এখানে প্রকৃত প্রস্তাব আপনাদের কাছে উপস্থাপন করবো, আপনারা বিবেচনা করতে পারেন সেটা। এটা নাই যখন আমি 91 সালে রিটায়ার করার পর আরো বছর ধরে আমি বাইরে থাকলাম, ফিরে এসে মনে করলাম যে এখনো তো বাংলাদেশের কোনো বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় খুলছে না এই বিষয়টা। 4-5টা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়কে তখন অ্যাপ্রোচ করলাম, প্রত্যেকেই এটা বললেন যে ভাই এটা তো মার্কেটেবল এডুকেশন নাও। এটা সত্য কথা। এটা কি জন্য, যে কে পড়বে বেঙ্গল আর্ট, এই মূর্তি তত্ত্ব, এই স্থাপত্য প্রাচীন, এমনি আর্কিটেকচার এখনকার প্রায় প্র্যাকটিসিং আর্কিটেক্টস ঢাকা শহরে 300-400 মতো আছে, কিন্তু প্রাচীন স্থাপত্য স্টাডি করার জন্য আঙ্গুলে গোনা যায় 3-4 জন লোক আছে সব বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে মিলে। এটা মূর্তি তত্ত্ব আপনাদের শুনতে কেমন লাগবে? আমি জীবিত একমাত্র ব্যক্তি বাংলাদেশে যে মূর্তি তত্ত্বের উপর অক্সফোর্ডের আমার একটা ডক্টরেট আছে, এছাড়া আর কেউ অর্থাৎ যে কোনো মূর্তি দেখেন ওটা আপনি খালি বলবেন এটা একটা হিন্দুদের মূর্তি, কিন্তু ওটা কি মূর্তি, কেন ওই নামে বলা হয়, কোন শতাব্দীর, কি ব্যাপার, এগুলো কেউ স্টাডি করছে না। এটা এখন সত্যি কথা, আমার ছেলে কম্পিউটার পড়বে, বিজনেস অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন পড়বে, আপনারাও তাই পড়বে, সবাই তাই পড়বে। এই জিনিসগুলো আমাদের পড়ার কোনো আয়োজন নেই, উদ্যোগ নাই, এবং প্র্যাকটিক্যাল কারণে কেউ উৎসাহ বোধ করেন না। এটা এখানে আপনারা হয়তো কিছু করতে পারেন, আমি আসছি খুব শীঘ্রই সেটাতে। তো এখন এই যে অবস্থা, এটার জন্য এখন আমার কিছু ব্যক্তিগত কথা এসে যাবে, ক্ষমা করবেন সেটার জন্য। যে 1994 সালে আমি এবং আমার স্ত্রী মিলে আমরা মনে করলাম যে কিছু একটা করা দরকার। কি করবেন আপনি? তখন আমরা আমার স্ত্রীর যে ব্যক্তিগত গ্রন্থ সংগ্রহ ছিল প্রায় 20,000, এই 20,000 বই এবং 50,000 স্লাইড এবং নেগেটিভ, এটা একটা ডকুমেন্ট করে আমি একটা ট্রাস্ট বডিকে, 10 জনের ট্রাস্ট বডিকে দান করে দিলাম। সেই ট্রাস্ট বডিটার নাম দ্য ইন্টারন্যাশনাল সেন্টার ফর স্টাডি অফ বেঙ্গল আর্ট, বাংলা শিল্পকলা চর্চার আন্তর্জাতিক কেন্দ্র, বঙ্গীয় শিল্পকলা চর্চার আন্তর্জাতিক কেন্দ্র। এটা আমার বাড়ি খুবই ছোট, 5 কাঠার উপরে বাড়ি বারাণসীতে। তার নিচের তলাটা 1800-2000 বর্গফুটের নিচের তলা। আমার বসবার ঘর, আমার খাবার ঘর, আমার রান্নাঘর, আমার প্যান্ট্রি এবং একটা গেস্ট রুম। এটাকে রেন্ট ফ্রি এখনো 13 বছর আছে। আমি এন্টাইটেলড, একজন রিটায়ার্ড লোক হিসেবে কিছু এক্সট্রা ইনকাম করার জন্য আমার দরকার আছে, কিন্তু বিনা ভাড়ায় 13 বছর আছে। এবং পাশে আরো 2টো অ্যাপার্টমেন্ট 40,000 টাকায় ভাড়া করে আমার অ্যাকোমোডেশন হয় না, কারণ এই বইগুলো যখন ঠিক মতো সাজালাম 68টা আলমারি লাগে। এবং পরে আমি কমপ্লিমেন্ট পেলাম যে ইনসিডেন্টালি দিস ইজ দ্য লার্জেস্ট পার্সোনাল লাইব্রেরি ইন বাংলাদেশ। আই স্ট্যান্ড টু বি কারেক্টেড। যে এই পর্যন্ত 36টা সেমিনার করেছি বেঙ্গল আর্টের উপরে, দেশের এবং বিদেশের পণ্ডিতেরা এসে বক্তব্য দিয়েছেন। 7টা বাই অ্যানুয়াল ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কংগ্রেস অন বেঙ্গল আর্ট করেছি, 7টা হয়ে গেল গত ফেব্রুয়ারিতে, প্রতি 2 বছরে একবার। এবং এই 7টা এটা হয়েছিল বগুড়াতে, মহাস্থানগড়ে। 65 জন বিদেশি পণ্ডিত এসেছিলেন, 85 জন আসার কথা, কিন্তু এমার্জেন্সি হওয়ার ফলে 20 জন ড্রপ। এখন এই যে 65 জন আসলো, আমার জানা মতে বাংলাদেশে এ পর্যন্ত কোন বিষয়ে, সে ভূগোল হোক, আর ইকোনমিক্স হোক, কি ম্যাথমেটিক্স হোক, কি ফিজিক্স হোক, কোন বিষয়ে কোন সম্মেলনে বিদেশ থেকে এতগুলো পণ্ডিত নিজের পয়সা খরচ করে আসে নাই। 65 জন বিদেশি পণ্ডিত এসেছিলেন। আমার এই 30 বছর আমি জাদুঘরে চাকরি করেছি, আর তারপরে 13 বছর হচ্ছে এই সংস্থাটা নিয়ে। একটা জিনিস আমি খুব তৃপ্তি পাই, সেটা হলো যে বেঙ্গল আর্ট বা বঙ্গীয় শিল্পকলা, এই শব্দটার আমি আন্তর্জাতিক স্বীকৃতি আদায় করতে সক্ষম হয়েছি। ভারতীয় শিল্পকলা যেমন ইন্ডিয়ান আর্ট, বিরাট আর্ট, সারা পৃথিবী চেনে ইন্ডিয়ান আর্টকে, তার পাশে ক্ষুদ্রভাবে বেঙ্গল আর্টের একটা নিচ বা একটা স্থান তৈরি করে নিতে পেরেছি এই 13 বছরে। জার্নাল বের করি, একটা জার্নাল অফ বেঙ্গল আর্ট, 300 থেকে 600 পৃষ্ঠা এক একটা ইস্যু, এবং এতে পৃথিবীর 20 থেকে 30-35 জন লেখক এতে লেখে নিয়মিত। এবং এখন কোনো পিএইচডি কোনো ইউনিভার্সিটি দিতে পারবে না ইন্ডিয়ান আর্টের উপরে, যতক্ষণ না তারা আমার প্রকাশিত 10টা জার্নাল, আমার সম্পাদিত জার্নাল অফ বেঙ্গল আর্ট তারা কনসাল্ট না করছে। 7টা মনোগ্রাফ পাবলিশ করেছি আমরা, এবং অতি উচ্চ মানের আমি দাবি করি। সেটা আপনি দেখলে বুঝবেন, আপনি বিদেশি ছাপা আর আমার জার্নালের মধ্যে বা আমার মনোগ্রাফের মধ্যে কোনো পার্থক্য নেই। আমি আপনাদের অনুমতি নিয়ে আমি একটা গ্রন্থ নিয়ে, সেটা আমার 7ম মনোগ্রাফ এটা, এবং এটা আগামী সপ্তাহে আনুষ্ঠানিকভাবে প্রকাশিত হবে। এখন বাজারে যায়নি, কিন্তু আমি এই সুযোগটা নিচ্ছি যে আপনারা যদি বইটা সম্পর্কে অবগত হয়ে মনে করেন যে বাড়ি যাওয়ার সময় একটা সংগ্রহ করে নিয়ে যাবেন, আমরা খুব উপকৃত হই। কেননা আমাদেরকে কিবরিয়া সাহেব যখন অর্থমন্ত্রী ছিলেন 1999 সালে উনি আমাদের দেখে বললেন এত ভালো কাজ করছেন, আপনাদের টাকা লাগে না? বলে স্যার টাকা লাগে না, 18 থেকে 20 লক্ষ টাকা বছরে আমাকে চাঁদা তুলতে হয়। ওই যে চাঁদা, জনাব শফিউল আজম সাহেব চিফ সেক্রেটারি ছিলেন পূর্ব পাকিস্তানের, তিনি এইখানে 2000 সালে 1970 সালে একটা অনুষ্ঠানে এই শেরাটনের ওই বলরুমে উনি বিদ্রুপ করে আমাকে বলেছিলেন, লেট মি ইন্ট্রোডিউস দি বিগেস্ট প্রফেশনাল বেগার অফ ইস্ট পাকিস্তান। তো ওই গৌরব আমি পরিত্যাগ করিনি আমি এখন। তো এই 18 থেকে 20 লক্ষ টাকা বছরে তুলতে হতো। উনি অনুগ্রহ করার ফলে 99 সালে 2 লাখ টাকা দিলাম, 2000 সালে 4 লাখ, 2001 সালে 8 লাখ, 2002 সালে ওনারা চলে যাওয়ার সময় 10 লাখ করে দিয়ে গেলেন। মানে আমার ওই যে পরিশ্রমের অর্ধেকটা ভাগ প্রায় লাঘব করে দিয়ে গেলেন। আমি কৃতজ্ঞ তার কাছে। তারপরের বছর যে সরকার আসলো, তার মন্ত্রী যার 3 বড় ভাইয়ের সঙ্গে আমি কাজ করেছি, সেই জন্য সেই মহিলা মন্ত্রীকে বললাম চলেন আপনাকে নিয়ে, বলে আমাকে আপনি করে বলবেন না। আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে তবু চলেন, আপনিই রাখলাম তাকে, কারণ মন্ত্রীকে সবাই খুশি করতে চায়। নিয়ে গেলাম, দেখালাম। উনি ফিরে এসে অর্ডার করলেন যে এখানে যে বরাদ্দ দেওয়া হয় সরকারের 10 লাখ টাকা, এটা এত দ্বারা বাতিল করা হইল। এই 5টি বছর যে কিভাবে হামাগুড়ি দিয়ে, গলায় গামছা দিয়ে মানুষের কাছে চাঁদা তুলি বিনীত ভাবে, আমার একটু দুর্নামও হয়ে গেছে। এখন টেলিফোন করলে কেউ মনে হয় আমরা কাছে চাঁদা দেবো ভাই না, হংকং চলে যান, ব্যাংকক চলে যান, নামাজে দাঁড়ান, সোফায় বসেন, কনফারেন্সে আছেন, এসব হয়। কিন্তু তার মধ্যেও আমাকে সাহায্য করেছেন, বহু লোকে সাহায্য করেছেন, আমি তাদের কাছে কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাই। দেশে এবং বিদেশ থেকে সামান্য কিছু কিছু সাহায্য এসছে। আপনাদের ওয়াশিংটনে আমি একটা টক দিয়েছিলাম, ওখানে ওর বাড়ি লোকমান হোসেন নাকি বাংলাদেশ এন্টারপ্রাইজ নাকি নামে একটা তার আছে, তিনি একটা তার বাড়িতে ডিনার টক আয়োজন করেছিলেন। আমি স্লাইড ছিল আমার সঙ্গে, ওখানে $1400 তুলে দিয়েছিলেন উনি। এটা আমি কৃতজ্ঞতার সঙ্গে স্মরণ করি। যাই হোক, আমি আমার 7ম গ্রন্থ যেটা, এটা দেখাই। বইটার নাম দি আর্ট হেরিটেজ অফ বাংলাদেশ। গত 2500 বছরে বাংলাদেশের যে শিল্পকলার বিকাশ ঘটেছে, ভাস্কর্য, মূর্তি, স্থাপত্য, হিন্দু বৌদ্ধ পিরিয়ডের আগে, হিন্দু বৌদ্ধ পিরিয়ডের, মুসলিম পিরিয়ডের, কলোনিয়াল পিরিয়ডের এবং মডার্ন পিরিয়ডের আর্কিটেকচার আছে, পেইন্টিং আছে হিন্দু, বৌদ্ধ, মুসলিম, কলোনিয়াল, মডার্ন পিরিয়ডের। এছাড়া আছে মাইনর আর্ট এবং ফোক আর্টের। কারণ আমি দেখলাম যে আমার পরে এইরকম বই যে লিখবে আমি এখনো তাকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি না। আর আমরা এখন 3-4 জন বেঁচে আছি 70 ঊর্ধ্ব বয়স, একজনের বয়স 84, একজনের বয়স 82, আমরা 70-এর এই ধারে আছি, একজন আরেকটু নিচে আছে। আমার স্ত্রীরও 4-5টা বই আছে। এটা আমি আপনাদেরকে বলবো, এটা মান আপনারা দেখবেন 408 পৃষ্ঠা আছে, 150 গ্রাম ম্যাট পেপারে ছাপা আছে এবং 536টা প্লেট আছে, প্রায় সব কটা কালারে। এবং এর আমি এটাকে কিভাবে আপনাকে দেখাবো, মুদ্রণ মান বা বৈশিষ্ট্য ইত্যাদি। তো এটা আপনারা প্রবাসী, আপনাদের কাছে খুব বেশি মনে হবে না। $75 দাম, বাংলাদেশি টাকায় 5000 টাকা। এটা যেহেতু এখনো দোকানে যায়নি, আপনারা হয়তো চলে যাবেন, যদি কেউ আগ্রহ করেন তাহলে পারে বনানীতে আমি আমার সেন্টারের অ্যাড্রেস দিয়ে যেতে পারি, যদি আপনারা জোগাড় করেন, বা যদি এখানে অর্গানাইজারকে বলেন তিনি করুন। যাই হোক, আমি এখন একটা মৌলিক কথাতে আসবো যে আপনারা কি করতে পারেন, এই রোল আপনাদের কি হতে পারে। আমি ভাবছিলাম আসার আগে যে অনেক কিছু হতে পারে, কিন্তু 10-15 মিনিটের ভেতরে সেটা ব্যাখ্যা করা যাবে না। আপনারা 2-4টা আগে তো বলেছি, জাদুঘর এবং ইতিহাস বিখ্যাত যে স্থানগুলো আছে আমাদের, মহাস্থানগড়, ময়নামতি, পাহাড়পুর, বাগেরহাট, সোনারগাঁও, বিক্রমপুর, এইরকম জায়গা যেটা বাড়ির কাছে পায়। বহুদিন ধরে, বহু ক্রোশ ধরে, বহু ব্যয় করি, বহু দেশ ঘুরে, দেখিতে গিয়েছি পর্বতমালা, দেখিতে গিয়েছি সিন্ধু, দেখা হয় নাই চক্ষু মেলিয়া, ঘর হতে শুধু 2 পা ফেলিয়া, একটি ধানের শীষের উপরে একটি শিশির বিন্দু। আমি দেখা হয় নাই চক্ষু মেলিয়া নামে 7 বছর 8 বছর আমি প্রোগ্রাম করেছি টেলিভিশনে। বাংলাদেশের অনেক লোক যারা এখন 30 বা 30-এর ঊর্ধ্ব তারা দেখে থাকবেন হয়তো। এখনো আমার বয়স হয়ে যাওয়ার ফলে আমি ক্রমাগত অপরিচিত হয়ে উঠছি। তারই মধ্যে যে পরিচিতিটুকু আমার অবশিষ্ট আছে সেটা হলো দেখা হয় না চোখে মিডিয়ার জন্য আছে। তো আপনারা প্রবাসী বাঙালি বন্ধুরা আপনাদের পৃষ্ঠপোষকতা প্রদান করুন এই শিল্পকলা চর্চায়, কেননা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় এখনো ডিপার্টমেন্ট খোলেনি, তাদের বই নাই। সত্যি কথা, এই ধরনের বই জার্নাল প্রকাশ না হলে পারে বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ছাত্রকে পড়বে কি, তাকে তো বই দিতে হবে আপনার। তো এই ধরনের বই বা জার্নাল প্রকাশনায় আপনারা যদি সাহায্যের হাত বাড়ান, ওই যে বললাম আমি 300 থেকে 550 পৃষ্ঠা পর্যন্ত জার্নাল হয়, ওর একটা জার্নাল 1 বছরে খরচ হয় 3 থেকে 4.5 লাখ টাকা। আমাদের যে সেন্টারের কথা বললাম, যেটা যদি এই সরকার যদি আমাকে গ্রান্ট যদি পুনরুদ্ধার না করে, তাহলে আগামী বছরে যখন আপনারা আসবেন তখন আপনাদের কাছে আর এই পরিচয় নিয়ে আসতে পারেন। আমরা এটা বন্ধ করে দিতে হবে, কারণ আমার এমনি 95-এ বাইপাস করা ছিল, 2001-এ হার্ট অ্যাটাক হয়েছে, 2001-এ নিউ ইয়র্কে স্টেন্ট করেছি, তারপরে সেগুলো সমস্ত বন্ধ হয়ে গেছে, বাতিল হয়ে গেছে। ডাক্তার সাহেব অনেকে আছেন, গত 4 মাস আগে কলকাতায় গিয়ে আবার 3টা স্টেন্ট করতে গেছে। এরপরে আমি 1-1.5 মাস আগে গেছিলাম ইথিওপিয়াতে একটা বক্তৃতা দিতে। বাংলাদেশে 4 জন হাফসি সুলতান ছিল, ইথিওপিয়ান সুলতান। ওরা আমাকে ইনভাইট করেছিল আদিস আবাবা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে। আমি ওখানে গেছি বক্তৃতা দিতে। ওটা আবার 7000 ফিট হাইটে অল্টিটিউডে ওটা আদিস আবাবা। আই ডেভেলপ রেসপিরেটরি ট্রাবল। 7 দিন পর দৌড়ালাম ওয়াশিংটনে, সেখানে 10 দিন বাঙালি ডাক্তারকে দিয়ে প্রেসক্রিপশন করে অ্যান্টিবায়োটিক খেয়ে এসেছি। তো এসবের মধ্যে আছি। এখন আপনারা বাংলাদেশে এসছেন, ঘন ঘন আসুন, কর্মসূচি নির্বাচন করুন। কোন কর্মসূচিতে আপনার সাহায্য আপনাকে করতে হবে। আমরা বিদেশের কাছে হাত পাইতে, যতজনের কাছে হাত পাইতে, আপনার কাছেও হাত পাতবো আমি, এবং আপনাকে সাহায্য করতে হবে। আপনি নির্বাচন করুন কর্মসূচি যে আমি এইটাতে করবো। আপনি প্রতিষ্ঠান নির্বাচন করুন যে এই প্রতিষ্ঠানকে দেবো আমি। আপনি ব্যক্তিকে নির্বাচন করুন, যাচাই করুন, বাছাই করুন, শুনুন যে কাকে দিলে কাজ হবে, কে কাজ করেছে, কে কাজ করতে পারে। আপনারা নিজেরা সেইটা বিচার করে করুন। আমি খুব বেশি লম্বা করে বলবো না। যথাযথ বরাদ্দ প্রশিক্ষণের অভাবে আমাদের গবেষণা হয় না সরকার, কারণ বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় সব কিছু হচ্ছে, এগুলো হয় না। সেগুলো এই যে বাইরে থেকে আমরা করছি, এখন যদি আপনারা কোনোভাবে সাহায্য করেন, আমি যতদূর খবরের কাগজে পড়লাম আপনারা 1000 জন অংশগ্রহণকারী এসছেন, যদি $25 দেন আপনি, তাহলে আমার 1 বছরের খরচ হয়ে যায়। এই ধরনের প্রতিষ্ঠান আমাকে না দেন, আরেকটাকে দেন কাউকে। একটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়কে দেন, তুমি আবার ছোট করে একটা ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ বেঙ্গল আর্ট খোলো। আমরা দেখেছি $20-22 হলে পারে 1 বছরের খরচ উঠে যায়। যে কয়জন শিক্ষককে রাখতে হবে, ছাত্রকে, এখানে কে আসবে ছাত্র, যাকে আপনার 5 থেকে 6000 টাকা স্কলারশিপ দেবে, এমনি কেউ আসবে না পড়তে বেঙ্গল আর্ট। এই সাবজেক্টটা বন্ধ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমার বক্তব্য শেষ হয়েছে। মায়ের পেট থেকে জন্ম নিয়ে কেউ দেশপ্রেমিক হয় না, তাহলে আমাদের দেশে জেলখানা থাকতো না, চোর ডাকাত থাকতো না, কিছু হতো না। দেশপ্রেম একটা বিষয়, এটা কাল্টিভেট করতে হয়, চাষ করতে হয়, বীজ বপন করতে হয়, জল সিঞ্চন করতে হয়, তবে যে আপনি দেশপ্রেমিক হবেন। তো বাংলাদেশের সবচেয়ে বড় প্রয়োজন সেটা বাঙালি জাতিসত্তার ভিত্তিটাকে সুদৃঢ় করা। এই ভিত্তি সুদৃঢ় করবার জন্য আমাদের পূর্বসূরীরা 2000-2500 বছরে অনেক কিছু আমাদেরকে সম্পদ দিয়ে গেছে। সেই সম্পদকে যদি আমরা জানতে না পারি, বুঝতে না পারি, আমাদের মধ্যে গর্বের কিছুই থাকবে না, গৌরবের কিছুই হবে না। তো সেইটা করতে হলে পরে আমাকে এই যে আমি বিষয়টা নিয়ে চর্চা করার চেষ্টা করছি, আমরা কতিপয় ব্যক্তি, আমার সঙ্গে আরো 9 জন ট্রাস্টি আছেন, যেমন AM মুহিত আছেন, ডক্টর আবুল উনি মারা গেলেন 4-5 মাস আগে। তারপরে আমার বন্ধু মোহাম্মদ সিরাজউদ্দিন আগেকার সেক্রেটারি ছিলেন, প্রফেসর আব্দুল কালাম মঞ্জুর মুর্শেদ আছেন, আমার স্ত্রী আছেন, আরো অন্যভাবে কমিটিতে আছেন যারা। তো আপনারা যদি মনে করেন, আমি সংবাদটা আপনাদের কাছে পৌঁছালাম, সিদ্ধান্তটা নেবেন, কিন্তু মনে মনে আপনাকে একটা প্রশ্নের জবাব আপনি দিয়ে নেবেন যে আমি তো এখানে অনেক কিছু শুনলাম এবং অনেক কিছু আরো শোনার বাকি আছে আপনাদের। সেগুলোর ভেতরে আপনি এই বাংলাদেশের শিল্পকলাকে স্থান দেবেন কি দেবেন না, এটা দিয়ে আপনারা সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়ে আমাকে যে সুযোগ দিয়েছেন আপনারা বলার জন্য, যদি 2-1টা প্রশ্ন এখন বা পরে দেন আমি জবাব দিতে রাজি থাকবো। কিন্তু আপনারা জাতীয় জাদুঘরটা দেখে যাবেন, বা পাহাড়পুর, ময়নামতি, মহাস্থানগড়, বাগেরহাট, এমনকি ঢাকা শহরের ভিতরে লালবাগ দুর্গ, কোনো একটা না দেখে কেউ যাবেন না, তাহলে কিন্তু কিয়ামতে দায়ী থাকবেন।
Are there any questions? We can only take one question this time because we have two presenters here. You know.
আমি Dr. Shafiq from Sydney, Australia. You have done really brilliant work for long years. So আমরা কিভাবে আপনার সাবস্ক্রাইব করতে পারি আপনার জার্নাল সে ব্যাপারে
আমি একটা সংক্ষিপ্ত জবাব দিই। এটা
ধন্যবাদ।
আমার ওয়েবসাইট আছে bengalart.org, bengalart BENGALART, bengalart.org। এই ওয়েবসাইটে গেলে আপনি আমার পাবলিকেশনের ডেসক্রিপটিভ লিস্ট পাবেন। ডেসক্রিপটিভ লিস্ট পাবেন, জার্নালে কোন সংখ্যা কি আর্টিকেল বেরিয়েছে, বই কি আছে, কোন লেখক আছে, কথায় ছবি আছে, সব কিছু পাবেন, দাম পাবেন, এবং সেখান থেকে আপনি সিদ্ধান্ত গ্রহণ করেন। আমি আমাদের প্রতিষ্ঠানের কথা বললাম।
One more question.
ধন্যবাদ। আমার প্রশ্ন ছিল সাম্প্রতিক একটি ইস্যু যেটা খুব আলোচিত হয়েছে বাংলাদেশ থেকে
মাননীয় মডারেটর সাহেব বলেন, আমি এই প্রসঙ্গের মধ্যে ঢুকবো কি ঢুকবো না।
আমার প্রশ্ন শুধু যে কর্তৃপক্ষ যে সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়ে এটা পাঠানোর সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছিল, সিদ্ধান্তটা নেওয়াটা ঠিক ছিল কিনা, বা আপনার অভিজ্ঞতা কি বলে, বা না নিলেও পারত কিনা?
আমার মনে হয় এটা জবাব দেওয়া দরকার। আপনারা
আমি মোহাম্মদ জাহাঙ্গীর আলম, আমি মিউচুয়াল ট্রাস্ট ব্যাংক হেড অফিসে আছি, হেড অফ ক্রেডিট অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন।
আমি ব্যক্তিগতভাবে নীতিগতভাবে এক দেশ থেকে অন্য দেশে পুরাকীর্তি বলেন, শিল্পকর্ম বলেন, যথাযথ নিরাপত্তা ব্যবস্থার মধ্যে দিয়ে প্রদর্শনীর জন্য পাঠানোর পক্ষপাতী। এই মুহূর্তে আপনারা জানেন, আপনারা তো বিদেশে থাকেন, এই মুহূর্তে 100টা দেশ থেকে 100 জায়গাতে প্রদর্শনী চলে গেছে বা আসছে তাদের দেশে। বাংলাদেশের দুর্ভাগ্য, আজ পর্যন্ত আমরা তেমন আকারের কোনো প্রদর্শনী বাইরে পাঠাতে পারিনি। প্রেসিডেন্ট মিতারা ফ্রান্সে, তিনি যে কোনো কারণেই হোক বাংলাদেশের প্রতি খুব সদয় ভাবাপন্ন ছিলেন। তিনি বাংলাদেশকে প্রশ্রয় দিয়েছিলেন, সাহায্য করেছিলেন অনেক কিছু। তার সময় থেকে কথাটা শুরু। গত 4 বছর বাংলাদেশ সরকার আর ফরাসি সরকারের মধ্যে যোগাযোগ করে একটা চুক্তি স্বাক্ষরিত হয়। দুঃখের বিষয়, যারা চুক্তিটা বাংলাদেশের পক্ষে স্বাক্ষর করেছিলেন তারা এতখানি ওয়াকিবহাল ছিলেন না, যোগ্য ছিলেন না, যার ফলে ভিতরে ভুলভ্রান্তি এবং বিপজ্জনক শর্ত ঢুকেছিল। কিন্তু সরকার যেটা ভুল করেছে, এখানে অভিজ্ঞতা সম্পন্ন লোকদেরকে ডাকলে হতো। আমাদের যে কয়টা ডাইরেক্টর বা আর্কিওলজি রিটায়ার্ড অত জীবিত আছেন তাদেরকে ডাকতে পারতো, আমাকে বলতে পারতো, কোনো ধার দিয়েও যেতে দেয়নি কিছু। তারা করেছেন। এমনকি যখন সমালোচনা শুরু হয়েছিল তখন যদি তারা সবটা কাগজে প্রকাশ করে দিতেন, এইগুলো যাচ্ছে, এই শর্তে যাচ্ছে, একজন নাগরিক হিসেবে আমরা বলতে পারতাম এটা সংশোধন করো বা এটা করো না। সেই জন্য তারা ভুল, নীতিগতভাবে কিন্তু পাঠানো উচিত। কিন্তু এই যে যারা এটা নেগোশিয়েট করেছেন তারা যে কোনো কারণে ভুলভ্রান্তি করেছিলেন, ওর সঙ্গে কিন্তু 2টা চুরি হওয়ার সম্পর্ক করবেন না আপনারা। কারণ না, প্রদর্শনীটা যাওয়া উচিত কি উচিত না এটা এক বিষয়। আর 2টা মূর্তি যেখান থেকে চুরি হয়েছে, এয়ারপোর্টের খবরের কাগজে যা পড়ছে, আমি তো জানি না, তো তদন্ত কমিটি হয়েছে, তারা দেখবে। সেখান থেকে চুরি হওয়াটা খুব অস্বাভাবিক। এখন চুরির তো কারণ আর যুক্তি আমরা বলতে পারবো না যতক্ষণ না চোরকে ধরে খাড়া করা যাবে। খুবই দুঃখজনক যে এই হয়েছে। কিন্তু সবটা মিলিয়ে ওর প্রথম পর্বের জবাবটা কিন্তু আপনারা মনে রাখবেন যে আমরা বাংলাদেশ কুয়ার মধ্যে লুকিয়ে থাকতে পারবো না, আমাদের সম্পদ নিয়ে পৃথিবীকে আমরা দেখাবো। আমার খুব দুঃখ লাগে যে বিশিষ্ট একজন অধ্যাপক নাম করা, তিনি বলেছেন যদি তাদের দেখবার ইচ্ছা থাকে এখানে এসে দেখে যায়। এটা খুব ঔদ্ধত্যপূর্ণ জবাব হয়েছে বলে আমি মনে করি। এটা হয় না তা কখনো। এই মুহূর্তে টুটানখামন হয়তো প্যারিসে না হলে, লন্ডনে না হলে, জার্মানিতে কোথাও দেখানো হচ্ছে, তাহলে আমাদের সবারই যেতে হবে, এটা হয় না। তো বাংলাদেশ একটা শুরু করতে যাচ্ছিল প্রদর্শনী পাঠানো বা আনা, এটা এখন চলে গেল, এটা আর সুযোগ আসবে না। খুব সহজে আসবে, বাংলাদেশকে কেউ সহজে রিলাই করবে না হয়তো। যে এদের সাথে চুক্তি করে ওখানে, আপনারা তো জানেন যে এক্সিবিশন স্লট 4 মাসের জন্য তারা করে দিয়েছে, ঘোষণা করে দিয়েছে। আগামী 6 বছর পর্যন্ত কোথায় থেকে কোন দেশ থেকে আসবে এক্সিবিশন, সমস্ত চূড়ান্ত করা হয়েছে। তার মধ্যে যদি 4 মাস আপনার গ্যালারি খালি থাকে, আপনি তো একটা ফলস পজিশন পড়বেন। তো এইটা, তবে আমি ওই কথাটা বলবো যে যারা এটা লেখালেখি করেছিল, শর্ত করেছিল, তারা এটা যথাযথ মনোযোগ দিয়ে করেছেন বলে মনে হয়।
স্যার, একটা প্রশ্ন আছে। একজন পিছন থেকে একটা প্রশ্ন লিখে পাঠিয়েছে। আলোচনায় বলা হয়েছে দেশের কোনো ভার্সিটিতে প্রত্নতত্ত্ব পড়ানো হয় না, বাট সো ফার আই নো জাহাঙ্গীরনগরে ভার্সিটিতে পড়ানো হয়। এনআরবি সেক্ষেত্রে কি ভূমিকা?
না, আমি প্রত্নতত্ত্ব শব্দটা ব্যবহার করিনি, শিল্পকলা বলেছি। আমি ওখানে 18 বছর হলো 18 বছর পড়িয়েছি, গত বছর থেকে ছেড়ে দিয়েছি। জাহাঙ্গীরনগর প্রত্নতত্ত্ব, ওখানে মিউজিওলজি বলে একটা পেপার আছে, ওটা আমি পড়াতাম। ওখানে যে আর্কিওলজি আছে সেখানে আপনি পাহাড়পুর, ময়নামতি, মহাস্থান সম্পর্কে এই 2-3 লেকচারে স্পর্শ করে চলে যাবেন। ওখানে বিশ্ব আর্কিওলজি এবং আর্কিওলজিক্যাল টেকনিকটা পড়ানো হয়, কিন্তু বিস্তারিতভাবে বাংলাদেশের শিল্পকলা, প্রত্নতত্ত্ব কিন্তু একটা আলাদা শব্দ, তার ভিতর থেকে শিল্পকলার নিদর্শন বের হয়, কিন্তু প্রত্নতাত্ত্বিক খনন না করে শিল্পকলার নিদর্শন আমাদের কাছে অনেক আছে, শত শত আছে। সেই জন্য সেই সম্পূর্ণটা মিলিয়ে আমি বলছি বঙ্গীয় শিল্পকলা। সেই জন্য প্রত্নতত্ত্ব বিভাগ ওখানে যেটা আছে তারা বঙ্গীয় শিল্পকলা কভার করে না তারা।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
আমি বলছি তো যে আপনারা প্রবাসীরা, এটা আমি বললাম আপনাকে যে আমরা ন্যাশনাল ইউনিভার্সিটির সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করে বসে আছি, একটা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইনস্টিটিউট অফ বেঙ্গল আর্টের অনুমোদন নিয়ে বসে আছি, অর্থাভাবে শুরু করতে পারছি না। আপনারা প্রবাসী বন্ধুরা হয়তো সে ব্যাপারে সহায়তা করতে পারেন।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation. We now have Dr. Shafiul Hassan, founder, Bangladesh Medical Association of North America. He is going to present a paper on medical technology.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back, please? Thank you, Mr. Moderator, the panelists. I only have a verbal speech because I was going to be here as a panelist and I don't have a formal presentation, and I will take approximately 5 and 7 minutes. And the substance of my speech is, I've been an expatriate Bangladeshi physician in the United States for more than 30 years. Bangladesh Medical Association of North America came into existence under my tutelage about 27 years ago, and we have memberships in most of the states, mostly in the eastern part of the United States. So one of the things that has been a problem for us in general, which I think the NRB conference is a very good place to place as a forum, is we have not been able to have a smooth transfer of technology and medical equipment and medical teaching in a continuous way where everybody can get the benefit of our expatriate Bangladeshis who travel to the United States on vacation or sabbaticals or other teaching experiences. My own small personal experience has been that when I have been able to allow time for a vacation, I'll put some time aside and make connections with institutions here, be it the DMC or the Postgraduate Institute or one of the newer institutions here, and make a one-on-one contact to make a presentation, ask them what they would like to have done for me to present as a teaching or performing some procedures. Likewise, cardiac thoracic surgeon, Dr. Alim, he comes here very often, and he has also offered his services, and he is available to provide services here when he is coming here. Now, besides providing services on an individual basis, we could have done this on a collective basis. That has never happened on this time. Also, we have a lot of medical equipment that has become outdated or has been replaced by different institutions for different reasons, and institutions in this country could take great advantage of this situation. We do not have a central clearinghouse, and without giving any names for any parties, one of the former prime ministers set up an appointment with one of our residents in New York City. And after waiting 6 hours, she canceled the appointment. So it was not a priority for our leadership in this country to make a communication or any kind of an effort to take the manpower, to take the technology, take the equipment, and take the expertise and do it in a global fashion so that when a physician comes to this country, he feels that it's a part of a continuum or an ongoing educational seminar where everybody can get the benefit from it. We also have a little difficulty in coordinating our contribution as to where our expertise should be offered the best. Should it go to the city at the government institutions like Dhaka Medical College? Should it go to, say, Sheikh Mujib Postgraduate? Should we offer a service to Burden? Should we offer them to the newer institutions which are for-profit, private pay, well-equipped, well-staffed, and perhaps well-managed, but they might also have some need for teachings or experiences of ours as well. These are the things that have been bothering me and bothering most of my colleagues who feel that our contribution should not be made like a political scapegoat. When we used to send medical equipment, I remember sending some equipment for teaching people to do CPR. The equipment stayed in the Dhaka airport for 6 months before it could be cleared. By that time, there was nobody to receive it on this end. There also have been equipment problems with catheters and lines, most of it by expirations. We have samples of medication that we would like to send. We have disaster like Sidr, we have not been able to find a way to send medications, drugs, antibiotics across the Atlantic, especially on an airline because of the tremendous amount of cost. Sending it by cartons is also become difficult when you don't have a receiving end. So I'm hoping with the EC showing the strong interest in promoting and NRB organizers in making this thing happen, that perhaps there will be some kind of a global effort from Bangladeshi side, the government side, the sector side, that we can have medical technology transfer individually, collectively, and also in an organized fashion. So that next year when I come back to the next NRB conference, and I'm sure there will be a bigger one, we will have some kind of answers, and I will be more than happy to have my whole organization, the BMA of North America, be a part of the NRB technology transfer, and we can make this thing happen more successfully than we have right now. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
First of all, I would like to introduce about my topic. What is depression? So before I talk about depression in women, so depression doesn't mean that depression is not defined as sadness only. We have some major criteria. So depression doesn't mean that a person or a person is crying all day or at night, but some of these criteria, it's developed, and when we have those symptoms, then we diagnose depression. For example, insomnia, not eating, feeling sad, worthless, hopeless all day long, and when depression becomes, very intense or serious, and usually that person becomes a suicide. So these are the major symptoms. These are common in depression. All right, now I'm going to focus on my topic right now. The topic I select is depression in women. Okay, so depression in women is a vast area, but two very important areas I selected: depression in pregnancy and depression in postpartum period. If I have enough time, or if I don't know, I'll have enough time to talk about anxiety, but I'll try my best to cover about depression. So incidence of major depression is very common during pregnancy. As a part of maternity health, mental health is very important. So in USA, in the United States, mental health is very much improved, but in our country is still undiagnosed, unrecognized, and women in our country, women in our country, they don't get enough treatment. We have a lot of factors involved with that. There's a social stigma, and also there's a religious barrier too. If a woman is suffering from depression or anxiety, especially during pregnancy or during their postpartum period of time, so it's not recognized, or it's not taken care of by a health care profession. So we don't have enough data in our country, but in USA it was found that women in their age 18 to 44 year, that is a reproductive period of life, and the greatest risk for depression in 1 year, actually it's very common when women when they are in their reproductive period of time. Usually it was found that the lifetime risk is 2.4 compared to other areas, or compared to men. Actually, depression, minor depressive reaction is common during pregnancy. Like women can complain of not sleeping, not eating, not feeling well, but we don't focus on that. We don't know, we don't recognize, we don't care for that part, and we just focus on health. But mental health is also a part of health, and to have a healthy baby, mental health is very important. So I really want to focus on that so that we can grow more. And we have a lot of centers like maternity health care centers, but in USA, when we treat a patient in maternity health care center, the family physician or primary care physician, they recognize about the mental health, about depression, about anxiety, and because mental health is very important to for women, so that they have a healthy baby, and they have a healthy life, and they have a healthy healthy environment. So some of the points I don't want to talk about because it's not recognized here, like what are the changes we have, why a person suffer from depression. So we don't have that. If I talk about chemicals, so you may not understand, but depression actually is a chemical imbalance. When we have a chemical imbalance in the brain, so a person, especially women when they're in their reproductive age, or when they're in their when they become pregnant, there is a lot of changes, hormonal changes, and there is other social stressors, and also some of the other risk factors, like if a person they don't know about their some of the areas like self-care and like prenatal care. And also some of the hormonal changes happens. So this is very important to know about depression when they are in their reproductive age. So what we do when a person is, when a woman is pregnant and talking about all the symptoms, not sleeping, not eating, and not feeling well, do we treat them or just continue maternity care but not focusing on mental health? Yes, we have to treat. We have to treat both. Now, if I treat a woman who is depressed in pregnancy, do I consider medication? So there are a lot of counseling counseling education is important. Now, if I if I talk about the medicine, we have to be very careful because medication, when a woman is pregnant, I just cannot prescribe medication. We have to remember, first trimester is vulnerable. During first trimester, that baby is forming in the uterus. So it's very sensitive to medication. So during first trimester, we try to counsel that woman and know about the psychosocial stressors. If that person is vulnerable, like that woman has a major signs and symptoms of major depression, we have to consider to treat that treat that woman. Now the question is, what are the medications are safe during pregnancy? We have a lot of medication, we have newer medication, and we have older medications. So some of the medications, so those are not well studied in USA, but I'm not quite sure about medication in our country. So most common medication, and which are pretty safe in our country, not in our country, I'm sorry, in USA is SSRIs, that is serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Some of the SSRIs like sertraline, paroxetine, fluoxamine. So these are the medication. We try to avoid to prescribe this medication during first trimester, but if a pregnant woman is in risk in risk of having all the symptoms, it's better to treat the patient as recommended. Another important area in our USA, we have psychiatric hospital, and it is very much developed. So when we find that person that women has a lot of risk factors. Hospitalization is very important, and we provide good care. We provide medical as well as psychiatric care. So some of the medications I talked, there are older medications, so we try to avoid sleeping pills, we try to avoid some of the older antidepressants. So I think in our country, some of the older antidepressants are available. So we try to avoid those medications. And because those medications, some of the older medications, sleeping pills, and also other anti-anxiety medications, and those medications has effect on fetus, that is the baby. That medication can cause heart failure, tachycardia, any respiratory distress, or any urinary retention. When a pregnant woman takes medication, we need to monitor them very closely, and we try to link them with the psychotherapy, which is very helpful. They get education about the medication, what are the symptoms, how to relieve their stress, and that is very helpful. And we recommend, if a woman is not under stress, doing very well, discontinue medication at least 2 weeks prior to delivery, because if a patient is taking medication and a stronger dosage, when baby born, that baby can have withdrawal symptoms. So we try to avoid that. So some of the side effects we have to remember, because the side effects of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication is very important. A lot of women, they complain about weight gain. They complain about eating too much. And they complain about some of the other signs and symptoms, like restlessness and not having enough physical strength, because sedation is very common with some of the anti-anxiety medication or antidepressant. So when baby, after delivery, sometimes depression in women continues. So we have to be very careful, because after delivery, that period is called postpartum period. So during postpartum period, some of these psychiatric condition is very important, like depression, anxiety, and panic attack, but I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on depression. I wanted to talk about anxiety, I wanted to talk about panic disorder, which is very common, but I'm not going into detail. So during postpartum time, depression is very common. 5 to 10% of women suffers from depression after that baby was born. And this is a very important time, because to take care of the baby is important. If mother is depressed, if mother is not feeling well, and if mother is not taking care of herself, she cannot raise a healthy baby. She cannot take care of a baby. And that can influence baby's health. Another term we use is maternity blues, which is not intense like major depression. And it's very common or develop insidiously after 3 weeks of delivery. And some of the symptoms you may see, or you may experience that after delivery or during depression, a woman gets very agitated or irritated, or gets very sensitive. So you just do not take it as a different, different condition, because this is a depression. This is a psychiatric illness. So we can treat them. We can talk about how that women can feel better and they get more education. So if that woman is not educated about depression, it's very difficult to treat. So some of the steps we follow how to treat depression. Screening and early intervention is very important. And adequate dosage of medication is very important. Like the medication, some of the common medication, I think, I don't know you get this medication here in Bangladesh or not, but we prescribe SSRIs, that is serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So those medications are pretty safe during pregnancy, and there is a lack of teratogenicity. So pretty much closing my discussion. In summary, some of the few things I would like to focus. Treatment is very important. Please treat patients' depression, anxiety aggressively. We have a treatment, we have a safe treatment, we have a safe medication. And monitor the baby, the side effect of the medication, and monitor the serious risk of depression, like suicidality, which is very, very serious condition. And the suicidal rate is very, very high. So this is the end of my presentation, but I really want to focus a few things like psychiatry program, and the psychiatry program in the USA is it's a very good program. So if our Bangladeshi students, they are interested, and I think this will be a great opportunity for higher education. If you want to know any information, so I have my email. I can encourage you. I can give you some information. I think that will be a very good area.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah, there is a question. Any question for her? Okay, if not, do you have a question? Yeah. Okay. One question.
Thank you, ma'am. One thing you have told, the minimum information in Bangladesh. We have a mushrooming of NGOs,
Okay.
those who are working particularly for women's fields. If you go through NGO bureaus in Bangladesh, you will get so many information, those who are working for the ladies. And on the other hand, you will get so many informations. Those American students do these things. But as we are having so many NGOs, Bangladesh, they have gone deepest seabed of the women's problems.
I think
Please mind it.
I agree with you, but I'm just curious and interested to know how many women are getting, or how many women are getting treatment, help, and the diagnosis of depression. Because most of the women, when not during their pregnancy, but when they're in depression, they come with somatic complaints. They don't.
Even I have a problem in my house. My wife having baby after 7 years of my marriage. Before my children, she has insomnia. And after that, she is getting hallucination. And I will talk with you later on. We have to go for a tele-treatment or medication.
Yes, I agree with you.
Different type of therapies. And,
all right, yeah. I think that's a good comment. Okay, we are going to wrap up the session because we are running out of time.
What types of treatment we need for?
Absolutely.
We have a Chowdhury there.
Thank you.
All right. One more question? Oh, okay.
Thank you for this excellent presentation. The thing is, the older days in Bangladesh city and in the rural area, usually the postpartum mother, after delivery, the mother was treated in a separate room, probably outside, which was temporarily built for the newborn and the mother, and given food and all this, and most of the time used to live as an isolated, I'm not sure how the postpartum depression was handled. But I saw my mother or other people also, you know, and they had a lot of children at that time. And there was no psychiatrist for anyone.
But I think I talked about postpartum blues. That is normal.